One of the most exciting scientific findings of the past half-century has been the discovery of widespread trophic cascades. A trophic cascade is an ecological process which starts at the top of the food chain and tumbles all the way down to the bottom. And the classic example is what happened in the Yellowstone National Park in the United States when wolves were reintroduced in 1995. Now, we all know that wolves kill various species of animals, but perhaps we're slightly less aware that they give life to many others. Before the wolves turned up, they'd been absent for 70 years. That the numbers of deer, because there was nothing to hunt them, had built up and built up in the Yellowstone Park, and despite efforts by humans to control them, they'd managed to reduce much of the vegetation there to almost nothing. They'd just grazed it away. But as soon as the wolves arrived, even though they were few in number, they started to have the most remarkable effects. First, of course, they killed some of the deer, but that wasn't the major thing. Much more significantly, they radically changed the behavior of the deer. The deer started avoiding certain parts of the park, the places where they could be trapped most easily, particularly the valleys and the gorges. And immediately those places started to regenerate. In some areas, the height of the trees quintupled in just 6 years. Bare valley sides quickly became forests of aspen and willow and cottonwood. And as soon as that happened, the birds started moving in. The number of songbirds and migratory birds started to increase greatly. The number of beavers started to increase because beavers like to eat the trees. And beavers, like wolves, are ecosystem engineers. They create niches for other species. And the dams they built in the rivers provided habitats for otters and muskrats and ducks and fish and reptiles and amphibians. The wolves killed coyotes, and as a result of that, the number of rabbits and mice began to rise, which meant more hawks, more weasels, more foxes, more badgers. Ravens and bald eagles came down to feed on the carrion that the wolves had left. Bears fed on it too, and their population began to rise as well, partly also because there were more berries growing on the regenerating shrubs. And the bears reinforced the impact of the wolves by killing some of the calves of the deer. But here's where it gets really interesting. The wolves changed the behavior of the rivers. They began to meander less. There was less erosion. The channels narrowed, more pools formed, more riffle sections, all of which were great for wildlife habitats. The rivers changed in response to the wolves. And the reason was that the regenerating forests stabilized the banks so that they collapsed less often, so that the rivers became more fixed in their course. Similarly, by driving the deer out of some places and the vegetation recovering on the valley sides, there was less soil erosion because the vegetation stabilized that as well. So the wolves, small in number, transformed not just the ecosystem of the Yellowstone National Park, this huge area of land, but also its physical geography.
This is why you took a second job. While you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. While you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable, a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
Hey, what do you say, folks? Good to see you today, and welcome to the Bill Press Show on this big Monday. Here we go, Monday, January 4. First broadcast day, first show of the new year. Happy New Year from all of the gang here at the Bill Press Show, and we've got lots and lots to talk about. The new year starts off with a bang, literally. President Obama taking on gun control as his first big action of the new year. He will meet with the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, today to talk about what actions he may take by executive order. He's supposed to announce those yesterday, reportedly in a speech to the nation from the White House. And he's also scheduled a town hall on gun safety on Thursday. It's going to be a big week on that issue. President Obama vowing again to take whatever action he can because Congress has refused to act. And Republican candidates for president, every one of them so far has said were they elected, they would undo anything President Obama does by executive order. Speaking of guns, up in Oregon, a crazy bunch of wackos led by two of the Bundy sons with their armed friends has taken over a wildlife refuge in the state of Oregon. They vow to stay there for years if necessary, use violence if necessary to protest the imprisonment of two ranchers who were convicted of arson. Even their father, Clive Bundy, says these guys are doing the wrong thing. And in Pennsylvania, Bill Cosby arrested, finally, for having sex with a 15-year-old. A judge has ordered that Cosby and his wife, Camille, both have to give depositions in that case. We got so much to talk about, so much you are going to want to sound off about. You know how to do it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS. Good to see you today.
This is the Bill Press Show.
A single ember that escapes from a wildfire can travel more than a mile. That single ember can ignite and destroy your home or even your community. You can't control where that ember will land, only what happens when it does. Get Fire Adapted now at fireadapted.org.
Columbine, Virginia Tech,
Tucson,
Aurora,
Fort Hood, Oak Creek,
Newtown.
Newtown,
Newtown.
Newtown.
How many more? How many more? How many more colleges? How many more classrooms?
How many more movie theaters?
How many more houses of faith?
How many more shopping malls?
How many more street corners?
How many more?
How many more?
Enough.
enough,
Enough.
enough.
Demand a plan.
Right now. As a mom.
As a dad, as a friend, as a husband,
As a wife.
as an American.
As an American.
As an American.
As a human being.
For the children of Sandy Hook.
Demand a plan. No more lists of names. It's not too soon.
It's too late.
Now is the time.
Before we all know someone who loved someone on that list.
No more lists.
No more.
Who they might have been, no more.
If we had just done something yesterday. It's time.
We can do better than this.
We can do better than this.
It's time.
It's time.
It's time for our leaders to act.
Demand a plan. Right now.
Right now.
You! Demand it!
Enough.
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 All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
New Year starts with a bang. President Obama talking about gun safety. What do you say? Hello, everybody. Happy New Year. Great to see you on this Monday, January 4. First day, first broadcast. Well, not the first day. First broadcast day. First show of the new year. And we're happy to be back from a long break. Hope you are too. And good to see you. We trust you had the best of holidays and are ready to jump into the New Year's with both feet, as are we, with lots to talk about today. It is the Bill Press Show, and we are coming to you live from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., where the president and the first family arrived back at the White House yesterday just before noon. They're back from vacation. Give them another day, and the House and the Senate will be back as well. President Obama again, kicking off the new year with a big meeting at the White House today with Attorney General Loretta Lynch to discuss the executive orders that he is expected to sign maybe as early as tomorrow, executive orders on new gun safety measures necessary because Congress has refused to act. That's sort of our lead story today. And we look forward to hearing from you, your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And you can give us a call, assuming I can remember the number, at 866-55-PRESS. Is that even close?
You got it, bud. First try.
All right, man. Some things just stick in there and never go away. All right. How about it? The whole team back together today. Peter Rockburn and Jamie Benson. Hello, guys.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. We had a great holiday.
Yes, indeed. Always nice to have a little time off.
Everything was good?
Yeah, it was great.
Was Santa Claus good to you both?
Santa Claus was good to me, for sure.
Yeah?
No complaints.
No, all right. Well, that's good. Yeah. And your New Year's resolution, Peter?
I don't do New Year's
The number one on the list?
I don't ever do New Year's
You have to give us all 20 or whatever. But just like one.
I have none.
None?
I have none.
No,
I never do
one.
New Year's resolution.
You have one.
I want to be more generous in 2016.
Cyprian, give me some money then. He said.
Which means I might start being nicer to Peter.
Yeah, I'm on board for that. Yeah,
no, generous means money.
Yeah.
No, Cyprian.
I'll let Jamie buy me lunch today.
Cyprian is nice. It doesn't mean being is right. It doesn't mean being nice. It means money. Yeah. All right. Well, that's good to know, Jamie. The next time,
yeah.
All these homeless people we see around the neighborhood.
Yeah.
Hey, don't ask me. Get that guy.
Yeah. What are you doing for lunch today, Bill? Jim, you want to go to lunch? We should all just go to lunch. And then, when the bill comes, just sit there and wait and see who picks it up. See how generous he really is.
Ray Rogers standing by to take your calls. Hello, Ray. Happy New Year. 866-55-PRESS. Don't forget. And, Cyprian Bowling with his hand out.
Hold on, baby.
What happened, baby?
Yeah. Oh, you can see the New Year is off to oh, yes, indeed. And the New Year got off to a kind of a wild start on CNN New Year's Eve. I think the dumbest thing to do is to watch Anderson Cooper and Kathy Griffin from Times Square.
I can't.
I mean, it is such a bad
It's
show,
really bad. It's really bad.
Right. I mean, Dick Clark, they ain't. You know what I mean?
Right.
First
it's
of all,
terrible.
I was going to say, any of my friends, we were in California, any of my friends in California who stayed up to watch that, on West Coast time, forget it. But they were all drunk.
Yeah.
And they had correspondents all around the world, and Don Lemon and what's her name?
Brooke Baldwin.
Brooke Baldwin.
Yeah.
They were in New Orleans. So Anderson and Kathy throw to this pair of drunks. I mean, after all, they are in New Orleans, right?
Got to.
And Don Lemon, of all people, talks about Kathy Griffin's breasts.
Kathy tried to molest me, Anderson, in the green room.
Kathy tried to molest me in the green room.
Really big beads.
She has my balls.
Stand by it all.
And I have to say, Kathy, nice rack. I didn't know you had all of that.
Thank you.
What?
Still patting it on.
Applaud you for that.
Let's go this way.
Wow.
What is in that cup?
A little inappropriate, don't we think?
But
I mean, yeah.
Like, if you're going to be the serious news guy,
Yeah, right.
don't go
First of all-
telling a comedian she has a nice rack on
First of all,
TV.
you don't do that job.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You say, no, you know what? I don't think that's my role. Okay? You don't see, like, Wolf Blitzer in that role, right?
Wolf Blitzer ain't never doing
last
that.
Or
person.
Jake Tapper,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
They're just not going to do that.
no. But then on national television, hey, nice rack. Kathy, didn't realize you had all that up there.
Yeah. Great.
Yeah. I don't care if it's midnight or not. Anyhow, I hope they got heard something from CNN management, but who knows?
Well, they'll wait and see how the ratings are. That's what it's really going to come down to.
That is true. All right. Got a great lineup to start off the new year here. Elias Isquith will join us from Salon a little bit later in this hour. Avery Friedman, CNN's legal analyst, will be here to talk about the Bill Cosby mess. And my reporters in from Daily Beast and CNN as well. Let's see. What do we do now?
Can you handle this?
God, I can't
Think
remember.
you got this?
Oh, yeah, I remember. But first...
This is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Sarah Palin is back in the news,
God.
but not because of any of her political aspirations. She is putting her home in Scottsdale, Arizona on the market. I didn't realize that she bought a mansion in Scottsdale, Arizona.
Well, that's where the vice president,
That's right.
Palin, was going to be near the summer White House.
That's right. That's right. She bought this is a couple years ago, she bought a 6-bedroom mansion in Scottsdale, Arizona, and she is putting it on the market for $2.5 million. The property includes a wine cellar, a sports court, a pool, a spa, a built-in barbecue, a 6-car garage. So she says that she doesn't spend enough time there, and she's just going to sell the property. Again, $2.5 million, and it could be yours.
No thanks.
Yeah, no, I think there's some bad vibes.
They should give you a discount for buying Sarah Palin.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it could have sold for $5 million, but it's Sarah Palin's old house. So you know when you have these iPad or iPhone games that we all have on our devices now, you can buy in-app purchases, right? So if you want to play a game and you want to get an advantage or get extra credit here or there, you buy for 99 cents or you know $2 here or there.
Game coins.
Game coins, yeah. So a man in England had the Jurassic World game on his iPad, and his young son loved it so much. Loved playing on this game. Do you see where this is going? Mm-hmm. Turns out the son made 65 transactions between December 13th and December 18th, which came to a grand total of $5,900. The kid kept buying upgrades on the Jurassic World game on the gamepad. And this dad is very upset with Apple. He says that they needed to take better precautions to make sure that kids can't do that.
No, that's on the dad.
I think it's on the dad. Look, my kids
is.
have this stuff. You
Absolutely.
can absolutely, you have to set. Anytime that you want to buy something, you have to enter in the password.
Right.
And you just don't tell the kids the password.
Exactly.
It's pretty easy. And we found out over the weekend who is going to be playing for the 2016 College Football Playoff National Championship. Monday, January 11th at 8:30 p.m. It will be number 1, Clemson from South Carolina, and number 2, Alabama.
I knew there was a reason we were getting this.
They're going to be playing in the
Sorry,
national championship.
I don't have any theme music for you today, Peter.
No, it's okay. Well, you don't need any because Alabama absolutely destroyed Michigan State on New Year's Eve. 38-0 was the final score of that game, which puts them into the final against Clemson, who beat Oklahoma 37-17. to 17. Again, January 11th, 8:30 p.m. That is a week from today.
All right, there we go. Thank you, Mr. Ogburn.
Roll
Yes,
Tide.
indeed. And we jump out for our lead story and your comments. We jump out to the West Coast, to the state of Oregon, to nearby, down in the southeast corner of Oregon. Boy, I got to tell you, I go to Bend, Oregon a lot because one of our sons lives there. And you get outside of Bend, man, you are in no man's land. And that's where this is all taking place, near a little town called Burns, Oregon. In the Malheur National Wildlife Refuge, a gang of thugs, a gang of outlaws, have taken over a national wildlife refuge. They are armed. They are pissed off at the federal government, and they say they are going to occupy this wildlife refuge, a federal property, and a federal building. They're going to occupy it for years and use violence, if necessary, to hold on to it. To make their point that ranchers in that part of the country, especially two ranchers, are being treated badly by the federal government. The two ranchers, by the way, the two members of the Hammond family, Dwight Hammond and his son Stephen, were sentenced to 5 years in prison for setting fire to federal lands. Prosecutors were able to prove that they were guilty of arson. They were trying to cover up the fact that they had been deer hunting illegally in this wildlife or on nearby federal lands. I think in this wildlife refuge, at least they were deer hunting on federal lands. They set these fires to cover up any evidence of that. They were caught. They were convicted. They were sentenced to 5 years in prison. They served a few months in prison. Not sure exactly how long. And a judge ruled that no, and then they were released. The judge said, no, you didn't serve enough time. You got to go back to prison. And the father and son, have agreed that they're going back to prison, reporting on their own, peacefully, no protest, today in California, which is where they were sentenced. They have nothing to do with this armed rebellion. The armed rebellion is being led by two other wacko brothers, Eamon and Stephen Bundy. If that name sounds familiar, it's because, yes, they are the sons of the famous Clive Bundy, who had a similar protest against the federal government in Nevada 2 or 3 years ago, right?
Yeah.
But in this case, some protesters, they had a little protest on Saturday, peaceful protest about the fact that the Hammonds had to go back to prison. They were protesting that, and then this small group of people has taken over this wildlife refuge. The question I have for you is, now let's get this straight again. These are American citizens. They have, with guns, and they're we don't know how many. There could be 15, I've seen anywhere from 15 to 30. They have seized a federal building. They have seized a federal property, this wildlife refuge. They are occupying it. What is that if that's not an armed insurrection against the United States of America? What is that if that's not treason? And my question is, what should we be doing about it? So far, the federal government has done nothing. My question to you, 866-55-PRESS. Should we send in the National Guard? Should we send in the Army? Should we nuke them? I mean, what should we do? 866-55-PRESS. Here's Eamon Bundy on Saturday on an online video telling him what this is all about.
The people have been abused long enough, really. Their lands and their resources have been taken from them to the point where it's putting them literally in poverty.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. People have been abused, meaning these are federal lands, and I guess what he's saying is they just can't do anything they want on the federal lands.
When you hear him,
they can't run cattle.
When you hear him talk, it is straight from the mouth of Ted Cruz.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
Like that. This is the danger of pitting citizens
against their government.
By using that kind of rhetoric.
It's out of the mouth of Ted Cruz and Donald Trump.
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
Right. And Ted Cruz, and let's just skip the next one down to yesterday. He appears on CNN, Eamon Bundy, and says, "No, we're obeying the Constitution."
The American people have a right to know what's going on. I do want to acknowledge that the reason and the principles that we are here are based upon the Constitution of the United States.
You know what? This is also right out of the playbook of the NRA, because they say, well, the reason everybody needs any gun they can get and any amount of ammunition they can get is to be able to take up arms against the federal government. That's exactly what these guys are doing.
Yeah.
All right, so what should we do about it? 866-55-PRESS. And when you're thinking about that, just think about this, okay? These are white ranchers in Oregon. What if this were the Black Lives Matter movement that seized a federal building in Chicago or anywhere else? What if these people happen to be Muslims? Not even ISIS, just Muslims. What do you think would be happening right now? And what do you think people would be demanding right now? What should we do about these guys who have seized this federal property in Oregon? 866-55-PRESS. This is important. Let's talk about it.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
I cursor in between the R and the E. When I say dot, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan. Thank you. And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Armed protesters taking over a wildlife refuge seizing it in the state of Oregon. One of them said in the front page of the New York Times this morning, "We'll be here for as long as it takes. People have talked about returning land to the people for a long time. Finally, somebody's taken an effort in that direction. Liberating," they say. They're just liberating federal land and giving it back to the people. Yeah. Try that in downtown Boston, see how far you get, right? Try that in downtown Washington, see how far you get. They shouldn't be able to get away with it in a wildlife refuge either. I believe this is nothing. This is armed insurrection against the people of against the United States and against all of us. That's our property. And if they don't like what happened to these two ranchers, it's very interesting. The two ranchers who were convicted of arson are peacefully themselves turning themselves in and going back to prison to serve the remainder of their term. Yeah. These nuts, right? Even their father, Clive Bundy, who took on the federal government with the support of Ted Cruz, who was on that property, remember, in Nevada a couple of years ago. Even their father has said, this is the wrong thing for his sons to be doing. What ought to happen to them, though? We just going to look the other way? Gary, not too far away, out in Spokane, Washington. Hey, Gary, good morning.
Good morning.
Yeah, what do you think?
Well, I think they should send in the National Guard, and I'd like to comment on you, Bill, the deal with Clive Bundy. It was you that said let it just go, wasn't it? That you didn't want to send in the National Guard, and I think they should have done it then. We can't tolerate this.
I think they should have done then. Well, Gary, I must be honest with you. I don't remember ever saying that. I can't believe I ever said that because that's not.
I thought you did kind of lean that way. Let's let.
I don't think so. But I don't think so. But I'll tell you, if I did, I was wrong. I just say that.
Thank
Okay.
you. And aside from that, most of those people they want to stand around like Rambo. How many of those people are veterans? I'll bet not very many of them. I was drafted right after Tet in '68. I could have gone to Canada, and I didn't. And I'm a liberal, progressive as anybody, but I still am a patriot. And I get sick and tired of these people with all of their guns and all of their talk and their Dodge Diesel pickups with oversized injectors.
Yeah, you got it. Hey, Gary, man, I'm with you, and it's good to hear from you, brother, and thank you for your call. More calls coming up, 866-55-PRESS.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Before now, it's been difficult for criminals like us to know which states have loose gun laws. How would a criminal like me know which states permit me to carry loaded guns in their amusement parks, golf courses, or beaches?
I have some violent friends. We all wear leather jackets and scream at women. And we want to find out which states we can buy and sell guns easily.
CrimAdvisor.com. That's the site to find out where it's easiest for felons and fugitives to buy, carry, and even traffic guns.
That's why I love Arizona, where I can go see the beautiful Grand Canyon and carry a loaded gun without even having to get a background check.
You would fail that background check.
I'm sure of it. Now, what about a road trip? What states can I go to fill my trunk with guns and take it back home for my even more dangerous friends?
CrimAdvisor has a list for that.
That's so unreasonable.
Our traffickers' top 10.
Nevada. What happens in Vegas may have to stay in Vegas, but your guns don't. Bring them over to California and sell them.
The market up there is hungry for guns.
I understand that CrimAdvisor.com will tell me which states really cater to us criminals and creeps, but What about the states where we're not so welcome? The ones that don't get us?
I don't even like saying the name of these states, but California, Connecticut, Maryland, and New York all have laws to keep guns out of the hands of people like us.
I want to shoot California so bad.
Boo, California!
Boo, go home. Wow. CrimAdvisor.com has all this information?
Sure does.
CrimAdvisor.com. Plan your perfect getaway. Oh, like TripAdvisor.
Oh.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies. In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now. Please.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
8:33 minutes after the hour now, Monday, January 4. Sweet 16, everybody. And good to start off the year with you. Big story out of Oregon where a group of ranchers, or they're supporters of ranchers, who say, you know, they just feel the federal government is not treating them fairly, and so they have taken over. These are actually like unoccupied federal buildings. It's out in some remote area of Oregon. They didn't have the guts to do something like in downtown Portland, right, or some federal building.
The whole like lunacy of their thing is summed up, I think, by the fact that it's this sort of like snowy, flat area, and they're all out there in their forest camouflage.
Right. Yeah.
Like we're gonna show them, man.
You know, why don't they just join the Boy Scouts?
Pretty much.
Yeah, no, I mean, it is kind of silly on the face of it, but it is an armed insurrection. It is an attack on the United States of America, as lunatic as it may be. And the question is, what should we do about it? I'll tell you, I'm not sure sending in the National Guard is the answer. I don't know, but we should do something, and we should send somebody in and give them a chance and say, hey, dudes, this is wrong. Lay down your guns and walk out of here. If not, we're coming in after you. Just like we would do if these were a foreign enemy. These are domestic enemies of the United States of America. That's what they are. And again, think how different it would be if this were Black Lives Matter, right? Or in the old days, the Black Panthers, right? Or if this were just any group of Muslims, even unarmed, they wouldn't be alive today. That would be our response. So whether it's the FBI or whether it's the U.S. Army or whether it's the National Guard, yes, I think we ought to go in and get them out and enforce the law. 866-55-PRESS. Peter, comments?
We are on Twitter at BP Show, at BP Show. Nabil weighs in and says, freeze the Bundy brothers' assets and call out the National Guard and bring everyone involved in, dead or alive. Jessica also weighs in and says that this is terrorism. If this had been a group of armed Muslims, the right would have been going nuts for carpet bombs, as you point out. So you can chime in with your comments at BP Show.
I'm telling you, if they had been unarmed Muslims,
yeah,
we'd be in there right now.
Absolutely.
Forces would be rolling in. Tom, up in Boston. Hey, Tom, good to hear from you. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you and to all your staff, Bill. How are you?
Hey, Tom. All right.
Good. Listen, I think what they should be doing out there in Oregon is first try negotiations. If that doesn't work, set up perimeter around the building, not allowing them to resupply any of their things that they need, and cut off the power and starve them out.
Well, you know, one thing, I'm glad you mentioned that, because they are rearming themselves, right? The people are delivering.
Yeah, they're bringing in more ammo.
Bringing in more ammo and more people. So that's, and of course...
and more provisions and all this stuff. They are ready to just take over.
Right, and this is all happening while everybody's looking the other way, right? They're rolling. They put out the call for more volunteers, for more guns, for more arms, for more food, and that stuff is all arriving. And Tom, you're absolutely right. I mean, when I'm saying, send in armed forces, certainly you begin by negotiations and just say, hey guys, we take this seriously. You're wrong. You've got set up the perimeter, and then say you've got 12 hours to walk out of here, right? Yeah. Drop your guns and walk out of here. Or you can give them 13 hours. I don't care. But you make a deal, and then you go in. Then you got to go in. Sherry, out in Chicago. Hi, Sherry.
Hey, good morning, guys. Hope everyone's doing well. And Happy New Year. And everybody has really stole my thunder, so I'm not going to be on.
Oh, you got more thunder left, Sherry. We know you.
This president needs to step up to the plate, call it like it is. These terrorist acts are not going to be tolerated against the people of America. You have a certain amount of time. I give them 48 hours to get yourself together and get out, or we'll come in and we'll get you out. Do not play with these people, because this is the NRA's blueprint, and it's more to come.
It is the NRA's blueprint. And here's a question, Sherry. What do you think? I hope somebody asks them today. What do you think these Republican candidates for president are going to say about this gang?
Oh, they'll sugarcoat it. They're American people. They're concerned about their fellow man. And,
yeah, right.
They'll make it pretty. But like you said, if it was Black Lives Matter, the thugs, get them out there, get them, oh, man, it's crazy. But this is not going to be tolerated. The world is too volatile. There's too many nuts walking around. And what they're doing is wrong. They know it's wrong. President Obama, step up to the plate and call it like it is.
All right, Sherry. All right, good to hear from you. Happy New Year, friend.
Look at what happened in the streets of Ferguson. Look at what happened in the streets of Baltimore, right?
Yeah, right.
Before any threats of violence, right? Like, this was just a preemptive, we're going to have black people protesting. We need to get the National Guard out there. Like, look at what we've done in the past, and now look at how we're reacting to this. It's crazy.
I still keep coming back to the fact that this is such a remote area and such an unoccupied. I don't even think there were any federal rangers. Like maybe there was one who dropped in every once in a while. The buildings were empty, kind of warehouse buildings.
If you've seen some of the pictures from inside the building, it's just concrete, basically.
Right. On this, so they occupied a piece of land that was occupied only by deer and ducks, right? But they're strong, man.
We gonna get them.
Yeah, they're NRA people, man. We got them. Man, don't mess with us. God, Jessica is up in Caribou, Maine. Hello, Jessica.
Hi. Good morning and Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. Yes.
Okay, once upon a time, a long time ago, I took a course in constitutional law. And the First Amendment says that you have freedom of religion, the press is unencumbered, the last part says that you can petition the government. But in between there is peaceably assemble. If you have guns and to assemble, you are not assembling peaceably, and you're violating the law.
Well, of course, these people would say, Jessica, that the First Amendment is followed by the Second Amendment, which gives you the right to have any gun you want in case the government infringes on your First Amendment rights.
The Second Amendment says. That's not what the Second Amendment says.
I agree with you, but
it says in order for a militia, because the Founding Fathers didn't want a standing army, so everybody, was part of the militia. That's the second one. But there's no militia. There's no threat. They're just showing up and throwing a temper tantrum because they can.
Yeah. No. Look, absolutely. So you think we ought to take them out, Jessica?
I think what should happen is, instead of taking them out forcibly, is set up a perimeter around and don't let any supplies go in.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, I'm not advocating the use of violence, but I am advocating the federal government making sure that these people are, by the way, are stopped, are thrown off the property, and then prosecuted for it.
These people are dangerous.
Thanks, Jessica.
They're dangerous. They're armed. They have ammo. They're bringing more ammo in. They're ready for a fight. They said they are ready to kill or be killed. They're dangerous people.
Yeah.
Don't take it lightly. Don't act like it's just going to go away. It's not just going to go away.
I'm just looking this. Yeah. One of the Bundy brothers said, well, there's nobody's at harm here. Nobody is at risk here. Well, anybody who they have said, as you pointed out, anybody who goes in there, right, to try to throw them out is at risk. They have said they will use violence, if necessary, to occupy this property and to chase anybody else out.
Yeah. By the way,
all they got to do is fire the first shot, and man, they are history.
Comment of the day goes to Robert Wisniewski, who just weighed in and said, I'm waiting for Sean Hannity to broadcast his show live from the compound.
By the way, which he did.
He did before with their dad.
With their dad in Nevada. Yes. A good point. Barry, out in Houston, Texas. What do you think, Barry?
Quite frankly, I think this is the right equivalent of the Weather Underground. I mean,
yes.
As far as a political baton, this could be just the thing that you could browbeat Donald Trump, especially now that Al-Shabaab does have a recruitment video showing Donald Trump. And like you said, this being out of the mouth of Ted Cruz, I'm from Texas, and I say, don't blame me. I voted for Paul Sadler.
Now, I'm glad there's somebody sane left in Texas there, Barry.
Well, not all of us are crazy here in Texas. Some of us have a few marbles still rattling around.
I know, and we're gonna get Texas back one of these days. Texas used to be a big blue state, and it's going to be blue again. Yeah. Hey, Barry, good to hear from you. Happy New Year. I think we're all on board here with the fact that the federal government's got to step up to the plate here on behalf of the American people. This is an act of domestic terrorism. It cannot be tolerated. It shall not be tolerated. When we come back, Elias Isquith standing by from Salon Magazine.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
It is possible to read the history of this country as one long struggle to extend the liberties established in our Constitution to everyone in America. In other words, who, according to our laws and culture, gets to be considered a person? The law creates legal personhood, and movements create law and change culture. So, how have the courts passed laws to shape our culture? That history goes way back before Citizens United. 1819, Dartmouth College versus Woodward, Supreme Court case, turned a corporate charter from a government-granted charter to a contract. This ruling gave corporations standing within the Constitution. 1886, Santa Clara County versus Southern Pacific Railroad. Though the court did not rule on corporate personhood, the decision was subsequently cited as a precedent to hold that a private corporation is entitled to the same 14th Amendment rights of due process and equal protection as human beings. This makes it impossible for us to make laws that treat local businesses any differently than giant multinational corporations, even if their business practices are deemed to be harmful to workers, the environment, and communities, or if they have a history of violating the law. Hale versus Henkel, 1906. The court granted corporations the Fourth Amendment search and seizure protection. Dodge versus Ford Motor Company, 1919. The Michigan Supreme Court says the business corporation is organized and carried on primarily for the profit of the stockholders. Stockholder primacy is established. The purpose of the corporation, according to the court, is no longer to serve the public good, as it had been. It is now to maximize profit for shareholders above all else. Pennsylvania Coal Company versus Mahon, 1922. Corporations get the Fifth Amendment takings clause, meaning if you pass a regulation that impacts a corporation's ability to make a profit, that is deemed a taking, and they can sue for the right to future profits lost. This creates a chilling effect, and local and state governments become much more hesitant to pass laws in the public interest for fear that corporations can claim loss of potential profits that cities and states will be on the hook to pay. Buckley versus Vallejo, 1976. The Supreme Court rules that spending money to influence elections is protected under the First Amendment, in effect saying that money is speech. Citizens United versus Federal Election Commission, 2010.
Today, the Supreme Court of Chief Justice John Roberts declared that because of the alchemy of its 19th century predecessors in deciding that corporations had all the rights of people, any restrictions on how these corporate beings spend their money on political advertising are unconstitutional.
The court's ruling threatens to undermine the integrity of elected institutions across the nation. It's a rejection of the common sense of the American people.
He's not running for president, but he will shake hands and kiss babies. It's the Bill Press Show, your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election.
Hey, it's 13 minutes now before the top of the hour. On this Monday, January 4, yeah, we're back. You're back. It's a new year and lots to talk about. Keeping people like Elias Isquith from Salon busy already in the new year. He joins us on our news line this morning. Elias, Happy New Year.
Hey, Happy New Year, Bill. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, good to talk to you. We've been talking about this standoff and the seizure of this federal property out near Burns, Oregon. These people say they are patriots. That's what they call themselves. Are they patriots or terrorists, Elias? What do you think?
Well, I think it'd be difficult to call them patriots, and I think by the kind of technical definition of what we say is terrorism, they would have to fit that. I think it's kind of interesting that our options have become so limited.
Yeah, I do too. Right.
But yeah, they're certainly not. You can find people promoting their version of patriotism throughout American history, but those have generally not been the people. Most of the people are the people in power.
I read somewhere this morning that these so-called patriots are not being treated that respectfully on the social media. Someone has nicknamed them, I have a hard time saying this, Y'all-Qaeda. Y'all-Qaeda instead of Al-Qaeda. As a bunch of kind of redneck yokels who just are playing with their guns, right? And
right.
I mean, imagine, as we said earlier, imagine if this had been the Black Lives Matter movement, right, that took over a federal piece of property, even in a remote area, what people would be saying.
Yeah, I mean, it really is kind of shocking, or I mean, it's something I guess we're becoming used to, or hopefully more people are becoming aware of the disparity and how the justice system works. But to see this happening so soon after we got the non-indictment of the police officer in the Tamir Rice case,
yeah,
it's pretty amazing, and I think it speaks to what people are saying about the sense that we have of what a threat is not consistent. You have a young child. Our system decides is sufficiently threatening, and then you have a ton of people with actual guns. And
a stockpile of ammunition, right?
And
that's
a stated interest in overthrowing the government. And the federal government's response so far has basically been, nothing too major. We're gonna wait them out, something along those lines.
Well, it'll be interesting at our White House briefing today to see what Josh Earnest has to say about any federal response to this. Stay tuned. We'll let you know a little bit later. Meanwhile, you ended up the year with your look back at the 6 worst political moments of 2015. Is Donald Trump all 6? I mean,
he could have been. I thought I would just. I think most people agree, at least people who read the news, that it was not a very enjoyable year. 2015. It was a pretty bad year. So. I mean, I tried to set aside, obviously, the truly tragic, awful things that happened, like in San Bernardino and in Paris and so forth, because that's kind of on a different level of awfulness.
Yeah.
And I tried to look at the stories that, at least, as someone who writes about the news, I found the most exasperating. So Trump is certainly on the list. It could be a list of 25 things, and they could all be Trump, to be honest.
Yeah.
But I tried to mix it up a little bit and remind people that, for example, that Kim Davis, remember her? And remember when the news media could talk of nothing else?
Yes.
Yeah, so, that's kind of a testament to the year we had that Kim Davis is like, you forget about it.
Almost been forgotten, correct, yeah. And she's still on her job, isn't she?
Yeah, I mean,
I think that
she won in some way.
Yeah, she won in a sense that they changed the law. She did go to jail, but they changed the law so that the clerk's name is no longer on the marriage license is issued to same-sex couples, right?
Exactly. And it's hard to, you got to figure that the backlash to sort of, the people who are criticizing her had to do with the current, Republican governor of Kentucky's victory last year.
Right. Give us some, remind us of some of the other bad things about 2015.
Sure. I mean, the first thing that kind of jumped to my mind in terms of just like an awful story that we forgot about, but remember last year the King versus Burwell Supreme Court case? We had, we had Obamacare suddenly this close yet again to being, struck down because of 5 words or so taken out of context that theoretically would, purposely dismantle the whole bill. That was pretty rough, and it wasn't fun to kind of remind myself how close the Supreme Court, even compared to Bush v. Gore, got to
just the fact that they took that case was a disgrace.
It's pretty bad. And then we had Hillary Clinton's damn emails. I had to get that in there.
God, yes.
I think most of us have blocked it from our memory, but we really spent like 2 months talking about nothing else for a while there. And none of us knew what we were talking about either, since it all had to do with kind of arcane stuff having to do with like email servers and so forth. So,
and how many congressional hearings, right? I mean,
oh gosh. 12 hours or whatever she did.
Right. It morphed from Benghazi to emails. Right.
Yeah. And then, I also had I had the way that the media's covered Ben Carson on the list, not because I think they've been like unfair to him. In some sense, I think in a way the media went maybe easy on him isn't the right way to put it, but I just feel like, Ben Carson's a pretty bizarre and fascinating person. His life story and the way it's been kind of monetized by him and other people in the conservative movement is I think, kind of important and speaks to the modern Republican Party. But we spent a lot of time talking about pyramids and what Ben Carson believed about what was put in them.
Listen, I think the media has treated Ben Carson with kid gloves. I mean, this guy is certifiably insane. If you really get into his stuff, the things that he has said. Pyramids being maybe just the tip of the iceberg.
That's one of the more reasonable things he said.
Yeah, right. All right, Elias, good to catch up with you, start off the year with you. And again, Happy New Year. We'll talk to you again soon.
You too, thanks.
Elias Isquith, Salon.com.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at Facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
This is why you took a second job. Why you taught yourself how to fix the plumbing. Why you'll do whatever it takes to keep your home. And that is why we want to help. We are making home affordable a free government resource that can make paying the mortgage easier. Call 888-995-HOPE today.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Sarah Wheaton from Politico, top of the next hour.
Later on this week in Portsmouth, New Hampshire, Hillary Clinton has a big event. It's Women for Hillary, and she has two big names that are going to be leading off the event. Actress Lena Dunham and Abby Wambach from the U.S. Women's National Soccer Team are both going to be there helping Hillary Clinton in New Hampshire. Two big names out on the trail.
Abby from... suburban Maryland there, right? Isn't that where she plays? You've seen her out there?
I have not seen Abby Wambach play out there. One of
that.
the members of the team plays there. Allie Krieger plays there. That's
right. Yeah. That'll be a big day for Hillary.
It will be a big day for Hillary.
Hour number 2 coming up.
Is the
Hang
Bill
around.
Press Show.
One of the most profound movements and one of the first real social movement in American history was all about slavery, and that's labor. And it was about creating a different kind of democracy, different kind of way of thinking about the economy. And I think these battles aren't over. The African American portion of American wealth as a whole is 3% today. And the last time it was 3% was in 1868, 3 years after slavery. African Americans going back to before the Civil War, and the earliest African American spokespersons and writers and leaders like Frederick Douglass and others argued that the fundamental feature of the American economy was dehumanization. And they also argued that you can't have a democratic constitution and an economic system that degrades and exploits people. Many of the radical Republicans who fought for the Civil War and in the Civil War believed the same thing. I think the true intent of the 13th Amendment wasn't just to eliminate chattel slavery. It was to eliminate all forms of economic oppression and create what we would now call living wages for everybody. I think that was the true intent. But these things were overthrown. After the Civil War, there was a counter-revolution, Lincoln's assassination, the destruction of Reconstruction. We got segregation, which wasn't just about making white people feel superior, it was about a cheap labor force, which persisted. The 1963 March on Washington, where everyone sees Martin Luther King's I Have a Dream speech, well, King wasn't head of that march. A. Philip Randolph was, the first black trade union president. The demand of the march was for jobs and freedom. Jobs came even before freedom. That sort of dream of a new kind of economy was tightly connected with thinking about voting rights and a new kind of politics. And when African Americans said we refuse to work as basically semi-slave laborers with no rights and no voting rights and no protections, and my generation said we're not going to do that work that our parents did, then employers started bringing undocumented immigrants into the country to work with no rights and no protections. And when the government said, well, what are we going to do with all these young folks like me who don't want to do this kind of semi-slave work? They didn't reform the economy. They said, let's lock them up. And we got mass incarceration. And so I think all of these things are related to our history. All of these things are part of the challenge of changing the system. And the system connects these things.
How I've been affected by gun violence over the years is through deaths of friends and family members and associates.
When I was 5 years old, I was held at gunpoint in a home invasion.
I've gone to the juvenile detention centers and I've met dozens of young kids, babies really, who have been affected by gun violence.
Directly, I've lost a few friends, but I think why this touches my heart is having children of my own.
You know, I've been at parties where, you know, I had just left the party and, you know, maybe 10, 15 minutes later, you know, I heard that, you know, somebody got shot and didn't make it.
There are a lot of people benefiting off of our pain, and it's time we do something.
I'm here to unload my investment because I think that it's important that we start kind of seeing where our money is going.
It's time to go to your financial advisor and demand that there are no gun investments in your 401k.
Even if you don't have investments, you can still help spread the word.
This is something everyone can do.
So if you push your people that have 401ks, it might be your grandma, it might be your cousin, this effort can make a big impact.
I'm unloading for my loved ones that I lost.
I'm unloading for my 18-year-old self.
I'm unloading my 401k for the future of my children.
I'm unloading.
I'm unloading
for my family and their future.
I'm unloading so that my daughter can grow up in a safe, loving world.
Unload and join the movement.
Use hashtag I'm unloading to pledge your support for gun-free investing.
I grew up in the housing projects of Cleveland. I didn't even know that life could be any better than it was. Education for me has been a way to get away from the agony of what was normal life. I want to be able to impact the community, not just look back on where I came from, but to reach back to where I came from and pull some people up with me. My name is David, and I am your dividend.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
President Obama starts off the new year with executive orders on gun safety. Hey, hello, everybody. What do you say? We start off the new year here on this Monday, January 4, with lots to talk about. The Bill Press Show booming out to you live, coast to coast, from our studio on Capitol Hill in Washington, D.C., there with you on the radio, nationwide on your local progressive talk radio station, and there with you on Free Speech TV nationwide as well. Good to have you with us. We look forward to hearing from you at 866-55-PRESS. That's our toll-free number. We want to hear your comments on Twitter at BP Show and on Facebook at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. And to celebrate the new year, hope you had a great holiday vacation, by the way, and enjoyed the break. We did, and we're back ready to go. The whole team, Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson.
Hey.
We're here. What do you say? All right.
Happy New Year.
Happy New Year. It's going to be a sweet 16. Yeah. I think it's going to be a wild 16.
I got to tell you, everybody was saying, 2015 was such a mess. Boy, it's got to be better in 2016. No, it's not. It's not. It's going to be a mess.
Same old, you know what.
It is. It really is.
I'm looking forward to it. And Ray Rogers here on the job at 866-55-PRESS, ready to take your calls. Cyprian Balding showed up for work this morning. We weren't sure he was going to make it in. He had such a, he partied hard.
He partied hard. I'm sure he did.
During the holidays. But he's here as our videographer. And I got to tell you, I came back from the West Coast, and on Saturday went off to do something I wanted to do a long time ago. Finally got around to seeing Spotlight.
Dude.
What a great movie. I got to tell you. You know, if you want to see a great movie, if you want to see a horrible, horrible story about the Catholic Church and how the hierarchy, all the way up to the Vatican, the hierarchy of the Catholic Church and bishops and cardinals in this country, covered up the abuse of children by hundreds of priests and brothers and nuns, but mainly priests, go see Spotlight. And if you want to see a celebration of how important investigative journalism is in this country, and how we all suffer because there is less and less of investigative journalists around, people who take the time. They don't have to chase, every cat up a tree every day, right? They can actually dig in for weeks or months and get into a big story and expose it and report on it. You got to see Spotlight.
It's great.
Great movie.
Some incredible acting, too.
I know. I mean, Mark Ruffalo, is that his name?
Mark
Ruffalo. The young reporter. Tremendous.
He's amazing.
He's amazing. And Liev Schreiber is Marty Baron.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right.
And it's on paper, it's a boring movie, right? It doesn't really strike you as anything. But it's perfectly directed, perfectly acted, perfectly written, even down to just the nuances of the time.
Yes.
Right? Which was not that long ago.
No, yeah, and they're into it, and then 9/11 happens, and they have to put it aside.
Yeah.
I mean, it's very, very realistic. It's excellent. And again, back to investigative journalism. I remember my first job on television, KABC TV in Los Angeles, local television station. It's an ABC affiliate, but O&O at local in L.A. When I went to work there, my first job in television, there were 9 people in the investigative reporting, right? 9 people. When I left 9 years later, there were 0.
Oh man!
And tell me how many local television stations today have an investigative reporting unit. I'll tell you, none. I'll bet you can't find one in this whole country.
I think you're right.
Even at cable television, do you think they have any investigative reporting? No. I mean, the only people left are, some of the websites and maybe 3 or 4 national newspapers.
Yeah.
It's sad.
Sucks.
But it's a great movie, Spotlight. Go see it. We're going to start off this hour with Sarah Wheaton, covers the White House for Politico. She'll be joining us. Avery Friedman from CNN a little bit later. And then Betsy Woodruff from the Daily Beast in the next hour. But first,
this is the Full Court Press.
Yes, indeed. Just a couple of other stories making news. Talking about movies, let's talk about Star Wars because it's bringing in a little bit of money,
I
Bill.
can't believe it. Yeah.
It's bringing in some serious money. This past weekend was the second largest January weekend of all time, thanks in part to Star Wars, which brought in $88.3 million this weekend. That brings the total up to $740.2 million. Oh,
my God.
That's big time money. Now, this puts it well on pace to eclipse Avatar as the highest grossing movie of all time. That was, which is, I said Avatar, they brought in $760.5 million. So they are well on pace. Really, all they need is another $20 million, which they'll probably get this week. Avatar had 760.5. Star Wars, as of now, has 740. That's just domestic. That's just domestic. It took Avatar 70.
Has there been a billion-dollar movie?
Yeah, it is. It's over $1 billion worldwide. Avatar took them 72 days to break the $700 million mark. It took Star Wars: The Force Awakens 17 days.
Wow, amazing!
So it's just, there's just no stopping this movie. It's insane.
So I'm glad to hear that because that means they don't need my help.
They don't need your help. They don't need you to go see it. I talked about some bowl games last hour. Here's another bowl game. The Rose Bowl happened over the holiday weekend, and Carly Fiorina set off a little bit of a storm of reaction after she tweeted about the Rose Bowl. Now, the Rose Bowl saw Stanford and Iowa going at it, and Carly Fiorina tweeted, quote, "Love my alma mater, but rooting for a Hawkeyes win today," end quote. Obviously pandering to the Iowa folks out there. As someone pointed out, she brought about the same kind of magic to the Hawkeyes football team as she did to HP because the Iowa football team got creamed. Stanford beat them 45-16. It started a whole new hashtag on Twitter known as Carly's Curse because she was pulling for Iowa and they got dominated.
Everybody would have understood if she said love Iowa, but my alma mater, Stanford. Nobody would have voted against her because of that.
It's crazy.
Pander.
She did come out and say it was tongue in cheek and she was joking, but it certainly didn't come off that way on Twitter.
Came off as desperate.
Very desperate. Very, very desperate. And Reggie Love, we know him as the body man, the former body man for President Obama. The Daily Mail took a look through his book, Power Forward, My Presidential Education, and got a whole rundown of what the president likes to eat and what the president does not like to eat. Some of his dislikes: fast food, fried food, battered food, mayonnaise. He hates mayonnaise. He doesn't like mayonnaise at all. Energy bars containing fruit. He doesn't like M&Ms in his trail mix. He doesn't like soda, and he doesn't like coffee. Some of the things that he does like.
Damn.
I know, right? Like, these are all
it
my
sounds like
foods.
Michelle maybe told
I was
Reggie
say,
to put
she
some
had a hand in this. Although, he did say he likes nachos. He said if he had his way, he would eat nachos every day until he, quote, had guacamole coming out of his eyes. He likes ranch dressing. He likes salads, but not on the go. And he says he loves grilled fish and grilled chicken.
All right, there we go.
That's not Michelle Obama.
No, next time he comes over for dinner, we'll know what to do.
There you go.
Right. Here we go now, 14 minutes after the hour. Is speaking of the man, he is back at the White House with big plans for this week. Sarah Wheaton's all over it from Politico, joining us on our news line this morning. Hello, Sarah.
Hey, Bill. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Happy New Year. Hope you had a good break.
Very nice one.
Very good. Before we get into the president's plans for this week, have we heard anything from the White House yet about the occupation of federal land out in the state of Oregon?
No, we haven't heard anything from them yet, but I'm sure that it will be a lively conversation with spokesman Josh Earnest at the briefing today.
I'm looking forward to that. I'm sure you are too. Yes, indeed. That may be the first question. So on the, there's no secret that the president plans to take up gun control or gun safety this week because the White House made a point of pre-announcing that last week from Hawaii. So what's on the docket? What's planned and when?
Well, he's meeting with Attorney General Loretta Lynch today, as well as the FBI director and the ATF, the head of the Alcohol and Tobacco and Firearms Bureau. And they're going to discuss the executive actions that Obama asked the Department of Justice to scrub through, as he put it, after the shooting in Oregon in October. And we got to be kind of honest here. We're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel at this point as far as what Obama can do without the help of Congress, but he's going to put out a few ideas that might, I wouldn't say it would so much close the gun show loophole, but it might make it a little bit smaller, and it will maybe make it easier to prosecute people who should be conducting background checks and don't.
So that's what I was going to ask you. So that's what we're focusing on, background checks. Is that right? Or we expect that he will focus on background checks?
Yeah, that was the major push in Congress after the Newtown shooting, was to close the private sale loophole. Basically, if you're a licensed gun dealer, if you're like a professional who sells guns all the time, you have to conduct a background check no matter where you sell the gun. But if you're a more informal seller, let's say you like to go to antique shops and buy guns and resell them, or if you just want to sell your collection, you generally don't need to get a license as a dealer, and therefore you don't have to conduct a background check. And so that's where we get this term gun show loophole, because you can go to a gun show and sell your guns. You can also sell guns online.
Right.
And the concern that some groups have is that there are some people who are actually selling a lot of guns a year quasi-professionally who really should be getting a license, and they aren't doing that.
All right. So we know he's been working for these for some time. Now he's going to have this meeting today with the principals that you mentioned. When are we going to know? When's the president going to announce what he's going to do? Has that been set?
We think there might be something in the next couple of days, and if he hasn't made an announcement on Tuesday or Wednesday, then definitely by Thursday when he's doing a town hall meeting with Anderson Cooper on CNN.
Right. So the town hall is Thursday, and there are rumors of perhaps a presidential address or something, right, tomorrow or Wednesday. So one question that's being asked, Sarah Wheaton with us from Politico, Politico.com, of course, is if the president has this executive authority, this legal authority to do something about guns, why hasn't he done so before now?
Well, as I said, we're kind of hitting the bottom of the barrel. They did 23 things after Newtown. They did another 2 executive actions in 2014. This idea of defining a little more tightly who needs to get a license, that has come up before in the past, and it was decided against in the past. It's not actually clear how much we're kind of referring to these things as executive actions. Probably won't be an executive order in the classic sense. It might just be Obama saying, hey, we're tightening the definition without there being an actual new regulation. We're still kind of waiting to see exactly what that's going to look like. And another thing that we're expecting him to announce is that people who ship guns and gun dealers who send somebody a gun, if that gun gets stolen in transit, they have to report it to the federal government. That is the finalization of something that was first kind of put on the docket in August of 2014. And going through the rulemaking, this is kind of wonky, but going through the rulemaking process, you have to put stuff through a public comment period. It takes a long time to actually implement things. So now they are formally implementing a rule that has been on consideration for a long time.
And nothing on the assault weapons ban, so far as we know.
No, nothing. I mean, I don't think that there's anything that the president can do by himself on an assault weapons ban.
And quickly, before we move, let you go, the lead story on Politico this morning by Timothy Noah is the president proposing some 4,000 new regulations in this last year in office.
Right. So as I was saying, all these regulations kind of have to go through a long process, kind of bureaucratic process. And so this is his last chance, kind of within the first 3 months of the year. If he doesn't get everything through, at least on the books, his administration won't have a chance to implement them.
Right. But, yeah, 4,000, again, in the last year. And Tim's story points out that the deadline, absolute deadline, would be May 17. That's a lot of bureaucracy to get moving in a very short period of time. We'll see how that goes. And we'll, again, see what the White House has to say about what's happening out in Oregon when we convene at 12:30 with Josh Earnest today at the White House. Sarah, I'll look for you there.
12:30 is very generous, but probably more like 1.
Yeah, I know. It'll be more like 1 o'clock, of course. Okay. Thanks, Sarah. Thanks for joining us.
Bye.
Sarah Wheaton covering the White House for Politico, Politico.com.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is The Bill Press Show.
Officer, were you the one who arrested me? You gonna shake my hand? So I got invited to host a vigil called Carry the Names. And that's what they were doing, carrying the names of the people who were victims of deadly police force. Michael Brown, Eric Garner, that guy Gurley. I got a motion from Dragonfly from Stop Shopping Choir, and I started preaching. I preached up a storm as best I could, but about a minute and a half into my sermon, the place was flooded with police, Homeland Security, National Guard, state troopers, and I was pushed over and handcuffed so fast, down in the jail, down in the basement. Before you know it, I was out the door, put in prison overnight. The next morning, I'm in court. The same thing happens. I'm just rushed out of there. Then our lawyer, Wiley Steckler, gives me this iPhone. And there, in black and white, in the Gothamist, a popular paper, is this charge by Adam Lisberg, the MTA law enforcement spokesperson for this grand place. His quote is that I, Reverend Billy, physically attacked a police officer. Unbelievable. The feeling of being robbed of my work and life and identity, just the fiction. I did not touch anybody. I did not look. I know how to do this. I'm trained in nonviolence. I did not do anything. It was right here. It was right here. It happened right here. I was simply arrested while I was speaking and taken away, and that's it. The cold feeling in my city, the city that I love, that city spokespersons whose salary I pay for with my taxes, that they would say this. I can just feel the rending apart of the community, that we are not that close. We're not. They are willing to say this, and they think that they can just say anything about anybody and get away with it. So we have something in the Church of Stop Shopping called radical forgiveness. Amen? I forgive the police. We gotta love them too. Cops and bankers love their mothers, but I'll stay radical. Love their brothers. We gotta love them too. But we'll wake up every morning forgiving each other, reaching out, touching, telling stories, having humor, being in a community together, sharing our children, sharing the streets, sharing the climate, being in the city together. But forgiving each other, being grateful to each other, helping each other out, living together, living together. I got a daughter just turned 4. What do we do in the superstore? What do we do with the blood and the gore? The water's rising through our door. Love our children too. Love our children too. Amen. Earth-alleluia.
This is the Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go at 25 minutes after the hour. Yes, indeed. By the way, the 2016 campaign slogs on.
Yeah.
And now we're into 2016. We are just about a month away from Iowa. Maybe
we're like I think we're 4 weeks away exactly.
Yeah. And with that, the candidates have stepped things up a little bit with 2 new ads released today by John Kasich and by Donald Trump. Kasich is out with, he's got to make it in either Iowa. He's not going to win Iowa. He's got to have a strong showing, though, in both Iowa and New Hampshire.
Mm-hmm.
He's hoping to buttress that with a 30-second ad, again, out today, where the theme of it is never give up.
He lived a hard-scrabble life in a rusty steel town. John Kasich never gives up. When he lost his parents to a drunk driver, he had the faith to carry on. Some said he couldn't balance the federal budget, but Kasich stunned Washington. They said he couldn't save Ohio from an $8 billion shortfall, but Kasich did. They say our best days are behind us. America, never give up. John Kasich.
I'm John Kasich, and I approve this message.
What do you think about that twang?
That's a little hokey. I mean, I would never, ever associate John Kasich with an ad like that, just because he doesn't come off as the hard scrapple kind of.
Sounds like a Budweiser ad.
It really does exactly like a Budweiser ad.
It does. And the other thing, I love that he balanced the federal budget all by himself.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, all by himself.
On the backs of teachers in Ohio.
Bill Clinton, but a federal budget.
Oh, right.
Clinton,
I see.
But he was Ways and Means. Bill Clinton had nothing to do with it.
Right.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, right. Leon Panetta, budget director, nothing to do with it. No, it was all John Kasich, right. So that's one. And the man who probably is wasting his money by buying any ads, because he's doing pretty well without them, Donald Trump is out with his first ad. And, of course, this is where you think he might apologize for saying no Muslims allowed in this country. He doubles down.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The politicians can pretend it's something else, but Donald Trump calls it radical Islamic terrorism. That's why he's calling for a temporary shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until we can figure out what's going on. He'll quickly cut the head off ISIS and take their oil. And he'll stop illegal immigration by building a wall on our southern border that Mexico will pay for.
We will make America great again.
I was waiting for
all
that
those
announcer.
lines that are totally impossible.
Why, but like, why even do that ad? Those are all the things that he says every single day on cable news.
I guess it's because he has so much money, he just feels like he has to spend it.
He's going to build a wall. It's going to be a beautiful wall. You're going to love the look of this wall.
And Mexico will pay for it. Yes, right. We're going to make it. But you know what? Say what you want. As the Hill reports this morning, Donald Trump is still number one in every national poll among the Republicans.
This
is
the Bill Press Show.
I have run these canyons for 6 million years. I have traveled from the Rocky Mountains to the deserts, through scorching heat and freezing cold, from the land of the dinosaurs to fields of food.
I lend my hand to 7 states, 2 countries, 9 national parks,
and 36 million people across an arid West.
I am not the strongest or the largest, but I am the hardest working.
People love me.
My playfulness,
My beauty.
my power.
My life. But I don't think I can offer any more.
I am tired.
I am tired,
tapped,
and tied. Of the hundreds of major rivers in the world, I am one of the few who no longer kisses the sea.
Battles to harness my soul have been won and lost. Use me wisely, and I will sustain you.
Use me like you have, and I will break. My name
is
Red. The Grand River Red. The American Nile.
The Canyon Maker. I am the Colorado River.
And I am the most endangered river in America.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
Hey, here we go, good friends, at 33 minutes after the hour on this Monday, January 4. And speaking of good friends, no better friend than our buddy Avery Friedman. Weekend legal correspondent for CNN, who also is unofficial the official legal correspondent. Let's make him official for the Bill Press Show as well. And we couldn't start the new year without saying Happy New Year to Avery.
Hey, Happy New Year to you too, Bill and Peter and the gang. It's great to be back, and here we go, right?
Happy New Year, dude.
Well, here we go, and Bill Cosby thought that he had all the bad stuff maybe behind him until Pennsylvania authorities came after him on January 30 and arresting him for sexual assault charges. First of all, Avery, tell us how this differs from all these other charges that have been filed against him that he seemed to be able to escape.
Well, all the cases together are sort of a dizzying array. And in fact, there's so many motions filed, I'm getting motion sickness. But what is going on now is that, and you really wonder if there's some political motivation here. And I'm very serious about this. You had an incumbent district attorney. Guy looked at the evidence, a guy named Bruce Castor, and he had an opponent, Kevin Steele, who took him on after a judge released the Cosby deposition where Cosby makes certain admissions about what he has done with certain women. Judge releases the information in July. The political campaign is underway this summer and the fall, and the incumbent is under attack specifically because he didn't charge Bill Cosby. Voters bought it. New guy's in, takes office. He sees the statute of limitations, which in Pennsylvania is 12 years, runs this month. So he charges him.
Yeah.
So here you go. You got one criminal case. You got dozens of civil cases pending, but this is the first and only criminal case going on right now.
And does that mean that everything is on hold until this criminal case is?
That's so interesting because I've heard commentary all over the place, but I don't think they're really coming from lawyers that are spending any time in courtrooms because, as a trial lawyer, one knows as a trial lawyer that when you have civil cases and criminal cases going on at the same time involving essentially the same people or potential witnesses, Bill, those civil cases are going to be stayed. So all this business that we've been reading about, the dozens of cases in California, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, right now there's going to be some serious consideration of whether they're going to all be shut down until the Pennsylvania criminal case is knocked off.
How many women are we talking about in the Pennsylvania indictment?
One.
Just one?
That's it.
Underage?
At the time, no. Actually, she was a young adult. She was an employee of Temple University working in the athletic program, in the basketball program, and she considered Bill Cosby a mentor. And the deposition that got released this summer talks about giving young women quaaludes, and while Bill Cosby doesn't admit that he specifically did it with this individual, he did admit that he buys quaaludes and sees if he can talk women into taking them. So, it's not the tightest criminal case in the world, but it's there.
Right. And is this one of the women that Bill Cosby has countersued?
No.
No.
This thing was dead. The civil case that she brought after the original district attorney, listen to this, the original district attorney said, look, not enough evidence, it's over. She brings a civil case, deposition comes out, but part of the deal was essentially you're going to get some money, but you've got to seal the deposition so nobody finds out, especially Camille. So that was part of the deal. Now, boom, the whole thing's out.
Now the whole thing is out.
Yep.
And so do we know whether this woman from Temple University, is she, a willing witness? Is she going to be part of this case?
I think she is the entire case. Andrea Constant, who had been trying to get back, some dignity for what she went through. That's what she's saying. The district attorney is now buying it. Didn't buy it a couple of months ago, buying it now.
Buying it now.
And they actually went up to Toronto and interviewed Miss Constant. New prosecutor says, we got enough evidence to prove a case beyond a reasonable doubt. Wow, okay. So that's the burden of the government to make this case happen. And again, look for motions in all these states and all these cases trying to shut it down. Because why? Cosby's going to say, well, wait a minute. Anything these witnesses can say can impact on the criminal case. At the same time, I can't say anything because of the criminal case, so my silence is going to be construed against me in a civil case. So, man, oh, man, like I said, there's going to be motions flying all over the place.
Why is there interest in having Camille Cosby be deposed? What possible role could she have played?
Interesting question is she played two roles. One role would be a legitimate area of inquiry. One would be, she was a manager. So there's no confidentiality. There's no privilege between a manager and talent. But there is privilege between a husband and wife.
Yeah.
So, other than embarrassing her, she may know about assets. She may know about things concerning her husband. But what if the question is, well, what did you learn about the actions of your husband? Well, if Bill told Camille about it, there's a likelihood that there's a privilege, a marital confidentiality. It doesn't get in. So, again, that's another mess of motions that will be involved.
Is anybody suggesting that she knew what was going on and was okay with it, or was at least willing to tolerate it, or was an enabler?
Well, I think that's a really good question. Nobody really knows the answer because she's never been deposed. 50 women out there, you kind of have a hunch that the wife might have some handle on the fact that something isn't right here, but no one has really asked the question, and that's what's coming up, or at least that's what's going to be attempted by the defamation lawyers.
So what happens next now in this case? Depositions and then a trial?
See, that's what I mean. I think this whole thing gets shut down. I think, but for the criminal case, depositions would have proceeded. All these other cases have gone forward. I think his lawyers are going to be out there saying, we got to shut it down. And I will tell you from personal experience, when you have the same case, one is a criminal case, one is a civil case, I have had the experience of federal judges, well, that's most of my practice, federal court, federal judges staying all civil proceedings until the criminal case is out of the way.
But in the criminal case, what happens next?
Well, I think what's going to happen is there's going to be what's called motion practice. There's going to be scheduling conferences by the judge. I mean, Cosby's not going to testify in that case. And the question will be, will prosecutors be able to bring in the testimony of other witnesses? There's a quirk bill. There's a quirk in Pennsylvania law that says that you can't introduce evidence of other similar acts unless there's a conviction. Well, there's no other conviction.
No, right.
So what the heck are they going to do? I think prosecutors are going to try to get the evidence of a pattern in practice by Bill Cosby and what he dealt with, with other women.
Right.
But man, if you've got that quirky thing in the Pennsylvania law, how are you going to get that in?
If, that's a big if. If he were convicted in this case, what are we talking about? Prison time, right?
Up to 10 years.
Up to 10 years?
Yeah. And was he 78?
He's
not feeling so good.
He's up there. Right.
Yeah, I mean, I mean, it would be a first offense criminally if there's a conviction. Again, it's up to 10 years, but at least according to Bill Cosby's lawyer, he is really in bad shape. Well, I guess anybody would be.
Yeah, when we've seen him lately, he doesn't seem to be in such good shape. Okay, now, I don't want to blindside you, but I have to ask you another question here on another issue, which is... We've got a group of armed protesters who have seized federal property, some buildings and a wildlife refuge in southeastern Oregon.
Yeah, in Oregon, right.
Yeah. What's their legal authority to do so?
Well, I think they're arguing they have a First Amendment right to assemble.
Yeah.
They have a First Amendment right to express themselves. Problem is they're also engaging in criminal activity, and they call that trespass. So I think, there is a problem. And I appreciate and I honor that, terribly important primary American right of speaking out and assembling together on issues about which you're concerned. But there are misdemeanors involved here, and if they don't straighten it up, they're going to the who's cow.
Yeah. As we said earlier,
as we call it here in the Midwest.
No, I like it.
Yeah. Peter and I were posing a question earlier. What if this were a group of Black Lives Matter people, right, who had seized a piece of federal property or a federal building? What do you think?
I don't think the principles are any different. I mean, I think some people get a little nervous about that stuff, but I've seen the Blue Lives Matter rallies. I've seen Black Lives Matter rallies. Law applies across the board to all citizens. You're trespassing, We just had this weekend after Tamir Rice came in last week.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
I'm trying to drive home, and smack dab in the main intersection, these guys are lying down. And to the credit of the cops, even though there's an ordinance that says you can't do that and you're subject to arrest, the mayor here, Frank Jackson, said, let it roll. And let me tell you guys, there was inconvenience. They had to wait about 45 minutes. Not one arrest. They got off the ground. They left. That was the end of it. Everybody went on their merry way.
Yeah, good for them.
So you've got to employ discretion and use common sense in the sort of issues that you and I are talking about right now, Bill.
Right. Yep, and I think we'll see. And I hope we'll see that out in Oregon.
I hope
as well.
so, because we're going to see it in Chicago. We're going to be seeing it all over the country. The question is how you manage it, how you deal with it.
You got it. Well, listen, 2016 off to a good start. Talking to you. Thank you so much, Avery. Hope to see you soon. Okay.
Yeah, look forward to seeing you too.
Thank you, man. Thanks so much. There he is. I say, man, Bill Cosby's is a
he's in real trouble.
He's what President Bush might have called deep doo-doo. You got it. From Avery Friedman. We'll be right back.
On your radio, on TV, and online. This is The Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You know, sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple and they add up and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that could be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like Archimedes said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
Seen on Free Speech TV and online on TawkrTV. This is the Bill Press Show.
Two great guests in the next hour, Betsy Woodruff from Daily Beast and Teddy Schleifer from CNN. We'll talk about 2016 and all the rest, but the big news story of the day is out of Burns, Oregon, a little town in the southeast corner of Oregon, very remote part of Oregon, high desert country, where armed protesters have seized and occupied, it's kind of funny in a sense, a national wildlife refuge, in protest over the imprisonment or the re-imprisonment, I guess we would have to say, of a couple of other ranchers in that area who were charged and convicted of arson. A man by the name of Dwight Hammond and his son Stephen, I've probably heard this story. They set fire to these federal lands where they had been trespassing and hunting deer illegally. They wanted to cover up their tracks. They were found guilty. They were sent to prison for 5 years. They served a few months and they were somehow released. A judge said, "Oh no! You got to serve more time than that." Ordered them back to prison. The man, Dwight Hammond, and his son Stephen have said, "Fine, we will peacefully report today back to prison in California." They have nothing to do with this armed protest. But this gang of outlaws has taken over this federal property, led by Eamon Bundy and his brother Ryan Bundy, the sons of the old famous Clive Bundy, who staged a similar but nonviolent protest against abuse, what he called abuse of federal lands, or abuse of ranchers by federal officials, if you will, on federal lands. The feds wouldn't allow him to run as many cattle as he wanted on this land, so they had that great big thing. Ted Cruz went out there and stood in solidarity with him. Sean Hannity, you remember, broadcast from his ranch. Well, now these are his sons who've taken over this property with, again, there are 15 to 30 of them. They are well armed, they are well stocked, and they said they're going to be there for years if necessary, and will use violence if necessary against anybody who tries to throw them off the land. The question is, what should the federal government do about it? Should we just look the other way? I say, hell no. They're terrorists. These are domestic terrorists. This is an armed insurrection against the United States of America, even in a remote area. I don't say nuke them first, but I think they got to be told by federal authorities, you got 12 hours to shut down and get out of here, or we're coming in to get you.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, set up a perimeter and prevent anybody else from getting in and prevent any other supplies from getting in. Unfortunately, it may be a little too late to start that. Eamon Bundy put out a video on Saturday expressing the reasons for their protest.
The people have been abused long enough, really. Their lands and their resources have been taken from them to the point where it's putting them literally in poverty.
Their land and their resources have been taken from them. That's kind of a contradiction.
The tyranny of the federal government.
Right. These are federal properties. These belong to the people. So the federal government's not taking land away from the people. These thugs are taking land away from all of us. But Peter, you made this point earlier, and it's so true. You're hearing that guy. This is right out of the mouth of Ted Cruz, right out of the mouth of Donald Trump, right out of the playbook of the NRA. Which, of course, Bundy, again yesterday on CNN, a news conference covered on CNN, makes that point.
The American people have a right to know what's going on. I do want to acknowledge that the reason and the principles that we are here are based upon the Constitution of the United States.
There it is. Yeah, right. Constitution. First Amendment gives us a right to assemble, and Second Amendment gives us a right to have any gun we want so we can take on the federal government when they abuse our liberties. I'm telling you. You know what? I was thinking about this earlier. One of the first things we'll learn about American history, right? The Shays Rebellion, where farmers in western Pennsylvania, just like this, they refused to pay the whiskey tax. George Washington sent the United States Army in to put them down and said, we cannot tolerate or look the other way against armed insurrection in this country, else we refuse to be a nation. Well, I think President Obama's got to step up to the plate here, and whether it's the FBI or the U.S. Army or the National Guard, just get these people the hell off our property. What do you say? 866-55-PRESS. We'll be right back.
Follow us on Twitter @BP Show. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, it ain't over yet. Hour number 3 coming up. But remember, you're going to have to wait around until 5 o'clock Eastern on Free Speech TV to catch the third hour. You can catch it right away, live, instantaneously on TawkrTV, our video stream, youtube.com/TawkrTV. Betsy Woodruff from the Daily Beast joins us in hour number 3 here in studio. We'll also be joined by Teddy Schliefer from CNN, who's been on the road with Ted Cruz. Lots coming up in hour number 3. Stay with us.
A few years ago, plastic bag waste in our city came to a tipping point. It was clear. We had a bag problem. My department was tasked to reduce plastic bag consumption We needed to come up with ways to change human behavior. So we asked ourselves,
would you like it back?
What do people really hate?
Yep.
Getting punched in the stomach. Preliminary studies showed that the consequences weren't severe enough to warrant behavioral change.
Actually, can I get that double bagged?
So we thought, what do people hate more than getting punched in the stomach? Kissing Helga.
Hey, big boy.
People didn't find her so offensive after all, so we had to get creative.
How many bags? Okay, now, pour this ice water down your pants.
We tried everything.
Eat this rat. Defuse this bomb.
Even fighting your clone. After blowing through millions of dollars of government funds on research, I came up with a brilliant idea.
Why don't we just charge 5 cents per bag?
That's a stupid idea.
Would you like it back?
Yes.
5 cents a bag.
5 cents? 5 cents? Do I still have the option of getting punched?
Honestly, I don't know how everyone else missed it.
Why don't you just get a reusable bag?
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, you got it. President Obama back in the office today. First day on the job. He's got a lot on his plate. Gets a daily briefing at 10 o'clock this morning. And then this afternoon, a big meeting you've heard about with the Attorney General, Loretta Lynch, Deputy Attorney General, Sally Yates, the FBI Director, James Comey, and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms Deputy Director, Thomas, and they will be talking about the gun safety measures that the president is expected to announce as early as tomorrow that he will do by executive order. We'll hear more about exactly what they have in mind from Press Secretary Josh Earnest with our briefing at 12:30 today. Betsy Woodruff from Daily Beast joins us at the top of the next hour. And then she'll be followed by Teddy Schliefer from CNN. So, two good reasons to stay tuned.
This is the Bill Press Show.
The hardest moments for me is when I'm laying awake in the middle of the night and I'm thinking about all the times I made a pitcher of Kool-Aid with the water, or I boiled a pot of corn or potatoes with the water. Those thoughts just stick with me in the middle of the night, and I feel horrible as a mom that I didn't know that something was wrong, but how could I have known? There's no way I would have known.
The spill at Dan River happened when a drainage pipe that ran underneath an ash basin and dam collapsed, sucking out 6 decades of waste and spewing gunk directly into the river.
My husband and I just kind of looked at each other like, should we be concerned? We live right next to an ash pond, and this was coal ash spilling into the Dan River, and we learned at that point all of the toxins that were included in coal ash.
A situation like Dan River, where there was a catastrophic
disaster gets people's attention. But the fact is that these coal ash pits have been leaking and poisoning people's groundwater and the state's surface waters for decades. Coal ash is the residue left behind after coal is burned in a coal-fired power plant. A large coal-fired power plant can burn 10 million tons of coal a year. When the organic matter in the coal is burned away, what's left behind are these trace minerals, things like arsenic, lead, mercury, selenium, and chromium. And these are highly concentrated. The coal ash can have concentrations of these contaminants that are 10 to 100 times greater than the level in the coals themselves.
Coal ash pond number 1 is right behind my house, literally pretty much in my backyard. We were approached by a neighbor who was wanting to have their well tested, and we decided that maybe we should have ours tested as well. They found hexavalent chromium at 4.5 parts per billion.
So in talking to the residents, we have discovered anecdotal evidence of an extraordinary number of cancers for this fairly small community.
Some of us in the community got together. We started kind of talking about all the cancer that we've seen in some of our family friends in this community. I think we had somewhere in the neighborhood of around 70 names. So we had some help from our river keepers putting a map together. And it was a little shocking to see it. You know, I still have a hard time looking at it.
Technically, EPA has not regulated coal ash as a hazardous waste, but it is undeniable that coal ash contains many, many hazardous substances that are hazardous, in fact, to people and the environment. And the only reason they have not been regulated as such is because of intense lobbying efforts by the coal industry and its allies.
A lot of these chemicals are simple elements, but when you find them at the levels that they exist in around coal ash ponds, then you're starting to talk about cancer, brain tumors, you're talking about birth defects, developmental problems, neurotoxicity.
We began to look at legal options, cases that we could bring in court to protect communities and their citizens from these toxic leaking time bombs. In 2002, North Carolina enacted a public financing mechanism for judicial elections. This kept private money out of judicial elections.
The repeal of the public financing program in judicial elections in North Carolina creates a dangerous precedent for all, and it gives corporate polluters and other special interests the opportunity to elect the judges that they want. And this is important for us all. Everyone should care about this. Because when you think about the fact that the state and the federal government have basically abdicated their responsibility to regulate these issues, the state courts are the last stopgap.
I think this is no longer a problem that's going to go under the radar. It has been exposed, and I am confident that we will ultimately, with the facts, win out and ensure that we have protected waterways.
And so this is something that we all should care about. If we're worried about the water we drink and the air we breathe, we have to be concerned about money in judicial elections.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
The average text takes your eyes off the road for nearly 5 seconds. At highway speeds, that's enough time to travel the length of a football field. Stop the texts, stop the wrecks.
Broadcasting around the nation, on your radio, on your TV, and online. This is the Bill Press Show.
New Year starts off with a bang. President Obama, new executive orders on gun safety expected as early as tomorrow. Hello, everybody. Here we go. Starting off the new year with a great big show, the Bill Press Show, on this Monday, January 4. Our first day back, our first broadcast of the year. Good to see you. Hope you had a great break and are ready to jump with both feet into 2016. We got the whole team here assembled. And good to see you on the radio, your local progressive talk radio station, coast to coast. Good to see you as well on Free Speech TV, on Dish Network or DirecTV, and also worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKRTV. Peter Ogburn and Jamie Benson leading our team here today.
Hello, Bill.
Good morning.
Happy New Year.
Right, same back at you with Ray Rogers. She is there on the phones, ready for your calls at 866-55-PRESS, and Cyprian Bolding behind the cameras and the lights on, keeping us looking good on Free Speech TV and Talker TV. Betsy Woodruff, a good friend from Daily Beast, starts off the new year with her first visit in studio for 2016. Betsy, how you doing?
I'm doing pretty good. A tiny bit of a sore throat, but I'm making my my nasal health great again, so I think it's going to be all right.
That's that New Year's party flu, right?
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, coming through with a sore throat on first day of the year, we appreciate it. Good. Very, very much.
You get the
I like to
Spirit
think
Award.
of myself as a fighter.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's right. The Spirit Award for today. I hope you had a good break. Huh?
I did. Thank you.
Yeah, very good. And, it was one thing. I was in California for the holidays, and almost everybody, all the friends I talked to, mentioned a great TV experience just before the beginning of the year when Jerry Seinfeld drove his Mustang onto the South Drive at the White House for his series of Seinfeld with comics in the car, right? I couldn't drive very far with Barack Obama, but they did drive around the South Loop there of the South Lawn. And Jerry starts out by asking President Obama, so what's your day like?
Get out of bed.
I brush my teeth, shave, put on some workout clothes. I go up, work out.
Shave, then work out.
Yeah, I believe in shaving before the workout.
Okay.
Because that's how I do it, and I don't really need a reason.
Have you ever had one of those George W. Bush? Remember when he couldn't find the door in the wall?
Yeah.
And he was just looking for the door?
Yeah.
I don't ever believe that publicly you've had one of those.
I have not had a public moment like that.
You haven't tumbled down a stair?
No, not yet.
You never leaned over and just started vomiting in Japan?
No, nothing like that's happened so far.
Nothing. What's your most embarrassing president moment?
This may be it.
Your most embarrassing president moment, this may be it, he says. Yeah,
could have been
funny.
it.
But the idea of shaving before he works out.
I'm anti
It's
that.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I'm against that.
I always try to get my under control afterwards.
Yeah, I guess this doesn't apply. But, I find it kind of strange. I don't.
Yeah. No, I don't either.
But and the president says because his answer was because that's why do you do it that way? President Obama said because that's the way I do it, and I don't need a reason. He's the president of the United States.
I guess if anybody can pull that card,
he can shave whenever he wants to. Right?
Yeah.
Exactly. And yeah, they had a lot of fun together, and it was a classic red Mustang there on the South Lawn. So Betsy's here with us for the first half hour, and then we'll be joined by Teddy Schliefer from CNN. But first, Peters all over it with
the
this,
Full Court Press.
Full Court Press.
Just a couple of other stories making news. So I told you last hour about Star Wars: The Force Awakens and how much money it's making. One person who's not thrilled with all that success, believe it or not, is George Lucas. So some of the quotes from this are crazy. So Lucas...
He gets all the money.
No, he sold it. He sold Lucasfilm to Disney, right? Disney is the one making all the money.
Yeah.
He sold it for $4 billion, which is, I mean, they're gonna make their money back on that eventually. But he sat down for an interview and said that he doesn't like what they've done with this Star Wars. He said, quote, "They wanted to do a retro movie, and I don't like that. Every movie, I worked very hard to make them different, make them completely different with different planets, different spaceships, and to make it new." He goes on to say, "All of the Star Wars films I made, I loved them. I created them. I was very intimately involved with them, and I sold them to the white slavers that take me."
Oh, God.
Literally nobody else wanted to be intimately involved with his new 3 Star Wars movies.
Right.
I don't know where that comes
That's
from.
the thing. Like, the prequels were so universally hated that Disney is clearly improved on those, but he's still, fighting.
You know
that
what,
battle.
George? You sold the company.
Take your
too
money.
late.
Take your money and run. Don't go down that path. It's not good.
Go put it on $100 bill or something.
Exactly. Bill.
Yes.
Powerball.
I'm ready.
You ready?
No.
All right. The next drawing.
A new one
the
for this
next
year?
drawing is Wednesday of this week, and the jackpot is getting pretty big. $400 million is what it's getting up to now, Bill. It's one of the biggest Powerball jackpots of all time.
Nobody won it on Saturday then.
Nobody won it on Saturday. That's right.
Good.
So it could get as
now
high
I'm back
as
in town and I can go for it.
$400 million.
My coworkers and I had a conversation the other week about which of our office mates would survive the least amount of time if we won the Powerball. We figured Swin would make it about 3 weeks.
Swin would die. Swin would die immediately. All right, he would just that'd be bad. All right, so actually,
I have to understand, Betsy. I only buy Powerball tickets when you have the least chance to win. So it's got to be over $300 million for me to even consider it.
All you need is $2 in a dream.
$2. I'm in it. I'm in.
Wednesday, you got to get it before Wednesday. That's when they're doing the drawing.
Well, the market's closed today, so I have to wait until.
So that means I have to do another story tomorrow to remind you.
I might just buy my tickets somewhere else because that damn Easter market hasn't come.
Yeah, you haven't had much luck there, so you might want to change that up. All right, so I see you're drinking your coffee. I'm not a coffee drinker. Bill, you're not a coffee drinker.
No, I have my iced tea.
But Nestle is developing a brand new type of coffee, and they say all you need is 1 cup, and it keeps your buzz going all throughout the day. Now, the problem...
That's a dangerous cup of coffee.
That sounds like a great idea.
Well, this is the thing. So they said the problem with coffee now is you drink your cup of coffee, you get that jolt, and it lasts a short period of time, and then it sort of goes away, and you fall down into that pit of despair or whatever it is that you fall into. So this new coffee involves slow-release caffeine. So it's not going to give you as big of a boost right off the bat. It's going to slowly increase caffeine into your sizz all throughout the day.
Sounds like a horrible idea.
Right?
There's nothing wrong with drinking multiple cups of coffee throughout the day. If your life is so stressful that, number one, you think you need some special GMO modified slow release coffee to keep you coherent, and also you don't have time to drink a second cup of coffee 2 hours later, you can just seriously reevaluate the choices that you've made. You have a way bigger problem.
Get some of that coffee, chemical coffee.
Yeah, I don't like that idea. All right,
there you go.
Don't have to worry about it.
All right, shoot it down then.
All right, there we go. So, Betsy, you are just back from Dallas on the Ted Cruz trail, right?
Yes, I flew into Dallas and then drove the 2 miles west to Cisco, Texas, where Ferris Wilks, who is one of Ted Cruz's most generous and open-handed billionaire backers, pastors a very small church. The Wilks brothers have made...
What?
Yeah, so Ferris Wilks and his brother Dan are 2 fracking billionaires. They grew up very poor in Central Texas, started a company that provided machinery to frackers when the fracking boom happened, almost overnight became billionaires. Now,
he's a pastor?
Yes. So Ferris Wilks pastors a church called Assembly of Yahweh Seventh Day. It doesn't follow Orthodox Christian theology.
Sounds like a fringe church, man.
Well, so let me walk you through this. They were super friendly. I went there on Saturday. They worship on Saturday. Very, very friendly people. unusual theologically. They don't believe in the Trinity. They only refer to God as Yahweh. They refer to Jesus as Yeshua. They believe all Christians need to somehow be grafted into the Jewish faith in order to go to heaven. They don't celebrate Christmas, Easter.
Wait,
it's a little bit confusing.
Christians have to become Jews?
Yes, basically.
Are they Jews or Christians?
I don't think they would describe themselves as Jews. They would describe themselves as members of the Assembly of Yahweh.
Yeah, Bill.
It's
plain as day.
But are they? Then they're Jews or not? I mean, this is pretty serious. If they're not going to heaven unless they're Jews, then these guys are all going to hell.
They weren't super clear about who goes to hell. I don't think it's I don't think it's a church that focuses a ton on that.
Good thing I didn't
but
go
here's
with
something.
you.
Oh, it's very interesting. No, you should go. They were super nice. They would love to talk to you.
I know they might let you in.
They'd be so nice to you, Bill.
I don't think they let me in.
But they don't celebrate Christmas, Easter, or any of the Christian holidays. Instead, they celebrate the Feast of the Tabernacles and the Feast of Unleavened Bread, which are mentioned in Leviticus, and everybody in the church camps out in tents in the churchyard for a week and takes time off work. Not your typical religious community, but Ferris Wilks is the pastor. And what was really interesting is how politically involved they are. They're part of this ministry called Salt and Light Citizenship Ministry, which is connected to the Liberty Council. Liberty Council, of course, represents Kim Davis, other county clerks who've refused to sign marriage licenses for same-sex couples. And once a month, everybody in the church, writes letters to their congressmen, their senators, telling them what they want them to do on a certain issue. So this month, I happened to be there on Salt and Light Sunday, which I didn't realize it was. That wasn't part of my plan, but fortuitous. And this month the focus was writing letters opposing letting transgender people use bathrooms of their gender, and also writing letters about trade stuff and trade potentially undermining American sovereignty. So what was interesting to me about this particular faith community is that it is what Ferris Wilks believes. Obviously, he's the pastor, and he and his brother have spent $15 million for one of Ted Cruz's super PACs. This is the first time they've supported a presidential candidate.
15
million.
Holy
yeah.
cow.
This is the first time they've supported a presidential candidate. This is the first time they've given significant money to anyone running for any political office. Ted Cruz is their guy. And it's just an interesting reminder of how much impact these small, atypical communities can have. And what else is interesting to me about it is how different Ferris Wilks is from your typical billionaire megadonor. Most of these guys we tend to think are sort of in the Paul Singer mode, right? Hedge fund guys, or sort of your Tom Steyer, sort of erudite, worldly, don't care a lot about social issues, probably not that religious. In the case of Paul Singer, who supports Marco Rubio, Singer was instrumental in helping New York pass legislation legalizing gay marriage. And Ferris Wilks is really the polar opposite of that. And of course, the fracking boom has made it possible for people who wouldn't typically become enormously wealthy to become enormously wealthy, and then to use that wealth to actually change the contours of the presidential election.
What do they think about women?
So the women at the church are encouraged to dress modestly, but they dress normally. Women don't speak in church, they don't give sermons or anything. In the bulletin, there was a line that said, yeah, they're allowed to drive and stuff. They're allowed to wear pants. They cut their hair. If you saw a woman in this church walking around in a grocery store, you wouldn't think, I bet she's part of a weird religious group. They don't look like Kim Davis or anything. It was a woman who's the liaison of their Salt and Life ministry. So nothing jarringly unusual, and not like the Duggars. That said, they're very, obviously, unsurprisingly, they're very opposed to abortion, very opposed to gay marriage. But their teachings on women didn't strike me as dramatically different from a lot of other evangelical Christian churches.
Is Ted Cruz a member of their church?
No, he's not. Ted Cruz, I don't think he's been to the church. Ted Cruz is just sort of mainline evangelical Christian. But obviously there's a connection and a amicability between him and Ferris Wilks and that world. In fact, Cruz was in Cisco, Texas, I think on December 29th for a large gathering of evangelical Christian leaders at Ferris Wilks's opulent mansion, which is just a few miles from the church. So
That's weird that he would have an opulent mansion. He doesn't sound like the type of guy that would have an opulent mansion.
Well, and if I can, something that struck me about Wilks is that the whole thing seems like something from a Coen Brothers movie, right? And I say that not in a bad way or an elitist East Coast way, but everything about this is just very Coen Brothers. Wilks comes to church in blue jeans and a suede blazer, and his wife stands up and talks about end of life protection laws in Texas, and it's just it's really fascinating stuff.
Wow. But people forget or maybe don't think the first thing to think if you think of Ted Cruz, first thing most people don't think of his evangelical roots. They're very strong, and he's got a huge appeal in that community, which is one of the reasons why Rick Santorum hasn't even gotten started this time. That used to be his base.
Without a doubt.
Now it's Ted Cruz.
And Ted Cruz is also very good.
His daddy's a pastor.
Yep, he's also very good at tailoring his message for whatever audience he's talking to. So you might use the term code switch there, right? Ted Cruz can talk to billionaires in Manhattan. He can talk to the Federalist Society, you know, the intellectual arm of the conservative movement. He can talk to Supreme Court justices, but he can also talk to people like Ferris Wilkes, who are perhaps not the most theologically astute, but also really care about these faith issues and sort of what they believe is what their faith means for public policy.
I've never heard this story about Ted, this guy in Texas. Are you writing this up for Daily Beast? Have you already?
It was supposed to go up this morning. I'll have to check if it got published. But if it's not up yet, it'll be up shortly.
Up shortly. You heard it here first on the Bill Press Show, and you'll read it here soon on Daily Beast, dailybeast.com. With Betsy Woodruff. We'll be right back with Bernie Sanders. Some big news. Feel the burn. We'll talk about it when we come back.
Get social with Bill Press. Like us at facebook.com/Bill Press Show. This is the Bill Press Show.
This is my computer.
This is your computer. Let's go on the internet.
Let's go. Click it.
Yes.
Okay.
Eye cursor in between the R and the E. Pressing down, I want you to just push the period.
She's gonna love me all over again.
That's it. Jamaica, here you come.
Here we go.
Good job.
Thank you. Thank you. And I did it by myself. Feel smarter.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. You know, but it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, you know, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
So, same time next week?
Well, of course. Put away a few bucks, feel like $1 million. For free tips to help you save, go to Feed the Pig.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
Hey, thanks for stopping by. You know, I followed your character since the first episode. I'm a big fan. Big fan.
Thank you.
And listen, your storyline, it makes for incredible TV drama. Thing is, your drug use is very adult content. Too adult for the kids. So I'm gonna have to block you.
Oh, man.
Yeah. Well, have a good one.
You're a nice lady.
This is the Bill Press Show.
All right, 25 minutes after the hour. This is embarrassing. I realize I made my first and only error of 2016. You're allowed to make an error, Betsy.
You get one. You put
Betsy
$1
Woodruff.
in the error
That's
jar.
it. Betsy Woodruff from Daily Beast here with us. You're allowed to make one mistake a year. I just made it, so the rest of the year is going to be perfect. I did mention mistakenly that Jerry Seinfeld and the president were driving around the South Lawn in a red Mustang. I don't know why. I just like Mustangs, perhaps. It was actually a blue Corvette. Thank you to all of you thousands of people who texted, called,
What about your gas?
Emailed, just to remind me I made a mistake. Okay, I hate you all, but it was a blue Corvette. I mean, I only got the color and the make of the car wrong.
Yeah.
It still had four wheels.
It was pretty truthy.
Truthy.
You're fine.
4 wheels, and it was on this around the South Lawn drive of the White House. So
Yeah, what more do you want?
that's it exactly.
Bunch of nerds.
Hey,
Nitpicking. Get a life, nerds.
Bernie Sanders with some big news. Betsy, I wanted to ask you about. Hillary Clinton showed that in the fourth quarter she raised $38 million. Bernie Sanders, $33 million from 2.5 million contributors in 2015, more than any other candidate in history. Here's Bernie making this announcement in Amherst, Mass. over the weekend.
I do not represent corporate America, so we made the decision to let them keep their money. We would do it on our own.
33 million is pretty impressive.
Not bad. I think that's probably why Hillary was sending out so many "please give me just $1" emails in the wee hours of New Year's Eve, because part of what makes Bernie's haul so impressive is that a lot of this is coming from very small dollar amounts.
Yeah.
It's not coming from super wealthy people. It's not coming from people who've maxed out. So in his donor pool, most of the people who've supported him, he can reach out to again for a second round of like $25 or $35 contributions. And I think it also just shows the extent to which Bernie's rise was probably the most underreported politics story of 2015. Yeah. Everybody sort of zeroed in on the Trump phenomenon, and understandably so. I think it's totally fine to do wall-to-wall Trump coverage if he's the front runner and he's running on a platform that's basically fascist. But at the same time, people basically didn't devote nearly enough time to Bernie Sanders. And I think kind of doing a disservice to the fact that this is a really significant iteration of the kind of very left progressivism that exists in the Democratic Party that has kind of gotten ignored.
Right. And he's spending a lot of money now on Iowa, maybe a big upset on Iowa. Betsy Woodruff, so good to see you. Thank you for coming in.
Yeah,
this is the Bill Press Show.
When I started learning about nutrition, about which, by the way, much less is known than you might think, I learned that what mattered most about one's health was not necessarily the nutrients, good or bad, that you were consuming or staying away from, or even the calorie counts. But what predicted a healthy diet more than anything else is the fact that it was being cooked by a human being and not a corporation. Corporations cook very differently than people do. They use vast amounts of salt, fat, and sugar, much more than you would ever use in your own cooking. And the reason they do that is those are three incredibly attractive and incredibly cheap ingredients. And when they're layered properly, as in a chip or pastries and forms of junk food, they're incredibly addictive. They really press our buttons. They activate our dopamine network, our cravings. And in fact, people in the industry, they don't talk about addiction in the food industry, even though they traffic in addiction. They talk about craveability. It's the same thing. And snackability is another term they use. It's a lovely word. And then the last point about corporate cooking that's important to understand is they cook different stuff than you do at home. What they're good at, in general, they don't cook that well, but things like chips, they cook incredibly well. And here's a classic food that if you make it yourself, if you've ever made French fries, you have to wash the potatoes, you have to peel the potatoes, you have to slice the potatoes, you have to fry them in a lot of oil, you have to spatter your entire stovetop, you have to clean up, and then you have this pot of oil you have to get rid of. I mean, it's really difficult, and it's a pain. They're wonderful, but it's a pain. And if you make them yourself, you'll only eat them every 6 weeks, 2 months, because it's too much work. But when you let corporations cook for you, it's so simple and so inexpensive, and they're really good, that you will have them twice a day, as many people in America do. So you see the kinds of foods you end up with are these labor-intensive foods and desserts. These special occasion foods become everyday foods when we let industry cook for us. Eat anything you want, just cook it yourself.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello? That's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
Streaming live video right now at youtube.com/TawkrTV. That's TAWKR-TV. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, here we go. 33 minutes after the hour. Happy New Year, everybody. Great to see you on this first day back. Monday, January 4, The Bill Press Show booming out to you nationwide, coast to coast on your local Progressive Talk radio station. On those two great radio apps, TuneIn or iHeartRadio. Remember, they're free. Download them and follow us on the radio wherever you travel in this country. Also looking at you on Free Speech TV nationwide and worldwide on our video stream, TawkrTV, youtube.com/Tawker, TAWKR-TV. Well, they took a brief break and then they were back on the trail again, candidates on the Democratic side and the Republican side, which keeps people like Teddy Schleifer from CNN pretty busy on the road with these candidates for CNN. But taking time out to join us in our studio this morning. Teddy, nice to see you.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for coming in. You've spent a lot of time with Ted Cruz. We're just talking to Betsy Woodruff about this billionaire supporter out in Texas.
Right.
The fracking king.
Right. Ferris and Dan Wilkes. Right, of Cisco. Betsy's piece is very good this morning.
So are they the new Koch brothers?
Not quite. I mean, it's interesting. I mean, they kind of first came into prominence this summer because there have obviously been very big donors in the social conservative movement for actually quite a long time, but most of their giving, because they're very private people, has been funneled through nonprofits. If you look at kind of their family foundations giving, they've always given to kind of leading social conservative organizations, but they're giving to what's called in campaign finance a 501c4, which aren't required to disclose donors.
Yeah.
So if you talk to people in conservative finance circles, they're not.
They're well known.
They're known entities, but you know, if you go to fec.gov and search their name, you're not going to see.
What's their interest in
much.
Ted Cruz?
I think that they obviously know him from Texas. I mean, they're constituents of his, and they see him as kind of the best fighter for social conservative values. I mean, I think a key thing in understanding kind of Cruz's political appeal, and at least kind of his path to victory, is they've always been seen is that because he has 3 clusters of 9-digit donors to his super PAC. People have given $10 million or more. That kind of makes him a much more credible candidate in the eyes of his allies.
I'll say.
Yeah, I mean, because obviously there have been candidates like Ted Cruz who have had social conservative appeal, deep social conservative appeal.
Like Mike Huckabee or Rick Santorum.
Sure. I mean, but the challenge for them has always been, can they build a professional political organization, and in particular, a professional fundraising operation to kind of match that enthusiasm on the ground? And a lot of times the answer has been no, that they couldn't.
Yeah.
So Cruz, I think, pretty shrewdly early on recognized that if I want to be taken seriously, I need to raise big money, and he's been, by any standard, remarkably successful at that.
All right. So what's the game plan look like now, today, with a month ago before the Iowa caucuses?
I mean, I think, Cruz, obviously, if you're just looking at public opinion polls, Cruz and Trump both somewhat conveniently like to talk about this as a 2-man race. And polling sort of is beginning to bear that out. I mean, we've seen Carson's numbers drop. We've seen Rubio's numbers rise and then say somewhat stable. There's talk after the October and November debates of a Rubio and Cruz surge, and that hasn't necessarily been it hasn't necessarily been, those have not been equal surges.
Yeah.
I mean, polling looks like a Trump-Cruz race in Iowa.
With Cruz being the more likely?
Sure. I mean, I think it's, lots of these polls are within the margin of error, and Trump's argument is entirely that I'm going to bring new voters out to the polls, and then he's obviously a big fan of talking about polls that are done online, which most in kind of mainstream circles sometimes dismiss as not as credible.
The impression I get is that Cruz, partly because of his evangelical appeal, has a ground operation in Iowa, and Trump is counting on just his bluster to bring people out.
Trump's ground game is certainly more a-traditional, right? I mean, he's trying to do something that's untested, which is bring out scores of new voters, which almost Obama-esque and ain't.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously Trump supporters say, watch me, I'll do it, and that's why he hawks internet polls, which have a wider screen. And Cruz is, has probably, it's safe to say, has a more traditional voter base. Highly high support evangelicals, which traditionally are about half the turnout in the Iowa caucuses. But this has been an extraordinary year, and the idea of Trump having extraordinary turnout, can't rule that out. I mean, he's broken a lot of prognostications before, and you can almost see the idea of Trump won't turn out his voters is the new Trump will fade. So,
I know. Ross Duhat from the New York Times had a column yesterday, I don't know whether you saw it, just admitting that his biggest mistake in 2015 was discounting Donald Trump over, as most of us did, that he wouldn't announce, he wouldn't get in, he wouldn't win, wouldn't last. Most of us did throughout 2015. And then he ends his column by saying, but he'll never be the nominee of the party. So you start out 2016.
And that's somewhat hopeful, I think, in a lot of eyes.
Yeah, right. So what happened to Ben Carson? All right, so he's fired his campaign manager and his communications director. Is that going to save the Carson campaign?
I mean, I guess the big question with Carson in terms of assessing his political operation, and this is plain to anybody who, is a reporter and wants to look at how he spends his money on his campaign finance reports, is that he's a first-tier candidate, and to a lot of rivals, they would say he's running, a second-tier or third-tier campaign. He is not necessarily kind of invested in the big dollar fundraising game that we're talking about, like Cruz is able to do that. Carson has a collection of super PACs, kind of sometimes have stepped on each other, does not seem to have necessarily, at least as of this summer when we last kind of got a peek into the fundraising reports, doesn't necessarily seem to have any big dollar donor game. And there's kind of this, if you look at the reports, he spends a lot of money raising money. He'll spend, you can raise, his campaign is saying recently, hey, we outraised Ted Cruz. Ted Cruz said in the fourth quarter he raised about 20 to 21 million. Ben Carson raised 23. But you talk to any political professional at this point and you say, hey, it's, early January, the caucuses are in 30 days. It doesn't matter how much money you raised. It matters how much you have on hand right now. And I think there's almost certainty that Ben Carson has less money on hand than Ted Cruz does because Carson spends so much of his money sending huge swaths of mail saying, will you give me money? Which obviously means if you raise 10 and spend 6 to make it, you're only making $4.
But I read somewhere over the holidays that Ben Carson, even as a candidate, has been out giving paid and making a lot of money giving paid speeches.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Doesn't that indicate that his campaign is all about raising his profile so he can make even more money on books and paid speeches?
Carson has certainly kind of had he's certainly kind of maintained his private enterprise, which I think a lot of people in the coastal media forget is actually pretty sprawling. I mean, Ben Carson is, in some circles, as much of a celebrity as Donald Trump is. I mean, he's in conservative. His books are so widely read.
Right.
His social media reach,
and he's in such demand as a motivational speaker.
Yeah, I mean, he
right. That's what it's all about.
Yeah. You may recall during the summer
it's good for business.
Right.
You may recall during the summer he took a few weeks off to go on a book tour.
Yeah, right.
Right. Which obviously kind of had some external benefits for the campaign, no doubt, but it was not formal campaigning. And that was kind of, if I recall, at almost the zenith of his appeal during his rise in the late summer, early fall. He went on a 2-week national book tour, which just shows. But every candidate has kind of a private life and they have private interests. If you're not in elected office right now and people want to make money, and every candidate has to balance the fact that they're running a campaign they probably won't win just based on the numbers, and they want to make money at the same time, and candidates have to kind of balance the ethical questions there.
Something new on the political horizon today, Donald Trump is out with his first paid ad. And if we have that ready, Jamie, if anybody was expecting him to apologize for suggesting that no Muslims be admitted into the United States, they might be in for a surprise. Here it is.
I'm Donald Trump, and I approve this message.
The politicians can pretend it's something else, but Donald Trump calls it radical Islamic terrorism. That's why he's calling for a temporary shutdown of Muslims entering the United States until we can figure out what's going on. He'll quickly cut the head off ISIS and take their oil. And he'll stop illegal immigration by building a wall on our southern border that Mexico will pay for.
We will make America great again.
Mexico will pay for that wall. Oh, man. Eddie, you hear that, right?
I did.
Here's a question I have. Why is he spending money on ads?
Yeah, a better question is, why isn't he spending money on ads? I mean, I think that's been
he's gotten done so well now without spending a dime on that.
He's done extremely well in national polls. Trump loves to hawk national polls. And honestly, if you looked at his national polls and you say, maybe you should say, why is he spending money on ads? He's up, in most polls, obviously well into double digits. But his early state polling is, I would not say, an ironclad grip on support, especially in Iowa, obviously. I think a good question is, campaigns and super PACs have been spending money since the summer. He's spending $2 million. He's buying $2 million a week in ad time. Rates are pretty high right now because we're so close to voting. This might, obviously, on cable news and on earned media, this is going to have a huge reach because it's, Trump greatest hits, and that's arguably going to have a much more viewership than kind of the actual people in Iowa who are seeing ads.
That's a good way of Peter. We were talking earlier about this ad. That's what this ad is. Trump's greatest hits. It's all his.
We've heard all this over and over and over again.
It's each of the lines that got him notoriety. Right. He's packaged them together
and support.
Packaged them together in 30 seconds. And President Obama, big plans this week. His first week back, starting today on gun safety. Teddy Schleifer from CNN's also been reporting on that. We'll get into that when we come back. If you have a question or a comment, you know how to do it. Give us a call at 866-55-PRESS.
Your progressive headquarters for the 2016 election. This is the Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
You wouldn't let money just blow out of your house. So when your AC or heater is on, make sure the doors, windows, and fireplace flue are shut tight. If you're headed out, turn down the AC or lower the heat by 10 degrees. And always keep your water heater set at 120. A little bit of common sense goes a long way. Get more great tips at energysaver.gov.
So, I'm kind of new here, but I've noticed a trend. My human does this funny thing where she goes around and gets all my toys, and then she hides them in that basket by the door. But it's always the same basket, and it's always in the same place. And then she acts so surprised when I find them, but, she's putting them in the same basket. Again. It's like, hello, that's where you put it last time. You were the worst at hide and go seek.
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
What the frack?
President Obama, are you fracking kidding me?
Reopen the EPA studies.
In Texas, Wyoming, and Pennsylvania.
Fracking pollutes our oceans.
Fracking poisons our water.
Fracking makes climate change worse.
Fracking relies on toxic chemicals that cause cancer.
Ban fracking now.
Ban fracking now.
Go on. Ban it.
Ban fracking now.
Please.
All right. I know this isn't any fun to talk about, but we should. Okay. So who's going to do what?
I'll pack the dead batteries.
Great.
I'll only put what I don't need into a duffel bag.
Perfect. That's totally unhelpful.
No problem.
Meanwhile, I will try to comfort everyone by speaking in a calm voice.
And I'll try to get the generator going without any gas.
Oh, let's not forget the cell phones, which probably won't work.
Right.
And who is going to handle supplies?
I can forget to do a list for us.
Thanks, pal.
Well, I think we couldn't be any less prepared. I'm proud of you guys.
Talk to your kids about who to call, where to meet, what to pack. Visit ready.gov/kids for tips and information.
The most valuable morning radio show, according to The Nation magazine. This is The Bill Press Show.
All right, 12 minutes before the top of the hour, wrapping up here with Teddy Schleifer from CNN on various aspects of 2016. Before we get to President Obama's gun safety plans this week, you have followed the money trail a lot.
Yeah.
Hillary Clinton, fourth quarter, reporting 38 million. Bernie Sanders reporting 33 million.
Right. Raised in very different ways.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the
impressive that he'd be that close.
Certainly, even when he's not really doing major fundraising events. I mean,
no, he
all
hasn't.
Organic.
I think he's one that I remember, which was a small time, like $50 a head or something. Like
right.
That,
I mean, it's definitely fewer than Hillary Clinton's
right.
campaign.
Where she's lined up at the ATM in Wall Street or California.
It's that's the much more traditional way to raise money.
Sure.
Right? I mean, you have fundraising events and you spend time and you spend money to do it, and it works. Sanders' way is much more atraditional.
2.5 million contributors, individual contributions, all of whom he can go back to again and again.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, I think that's what they would say is their kind of their ace in the hole is the fact that he can do, especially if he starts winning a few states. I mean, those are kind of the biggest spurts of enthusiasm. And if he starts winning a few states, I don't think there's a question at this point that Sanders is going to have the money, at least in traditional campaigns. Obviously, Sanders is not of a super PAC, but at least in the campaign, Sanders is going to have the money to at least match Clinton dollar for dollar pretty closely. And to have said that, 6 months ago would be ludicrous.
So does that make him a serious contender to Hillary Clinton?
I mean, he obviously still has kind of vulnerabilities that Clinton, in terms of the Democratic establishment, Sanders does not have, Clinton's grip has only really strengthened over the past few weeks. But in terms of the financial tit for tat, Bernie Sanders is going to compete with Hillary Clinton, which is remarkable, kind of given that establishment discrepancy.
Who would have thunk it? Okay, President Obama is meeting with Attorney General Loretta Lynch and James Comey, Director of the FBI, today, and others, to talk about what he might do by executive order on gun safety. And then on your network, Thursday, big town hall meeting. What's the plan?
So President Obama is going to be with Anderson Cooper at George Mason University on Thursday night. The president is always kind of seen, I guess, he's a big believer in the bully pulpit that, I guess to both his admirers and his detractors, that if you talk about something and frame it in the right way, you can convince people that you're right. He's going to be kind of previewing executive action that he's planning on taking. Obviously, coming in less than 30 days before Iowa will be political hot fodder, and Republicans already are kind of going to, will characterize and already have over the weekend at events, characterize this as executive overreach. Democrats predictably will be defending it.
Right. And Marco Rubio was the first to say, others have echoed that if they are elected president on day one, they will scrub any executive order that he might sign. But what is he expected to do by executive order?
Right. So the focus is expected to be, nothing's been announced yet, so everything's still tentative, is expected to be on kind of gun show loopholes and kind of background checks for kind of people who are high volume sellers, which has been a focus of the president before. Obviously the security questions have over kind of the availability of firearms have been elevated ever since recent terrorist attacks. But the president, if you remember, it wasn't that long ago that we all recall that the White House spent tremendous amount of political capital right after the re-election, and basically, obviously lost that battle, in 2013 on guns. That was a huge push by the White House, and it, by any measure, failed. And that was, when you had a lot of money kind of coming more and more to the pro-gun control side. Obviously, the politics of this have always been tricky. The NRA, based on any objective, is one of the most powerful lobbies in Washington. They have a lot of money. They're very good at framing the issue. Democratic pro-gun control groups are getting injected with more money now. Bloomberg is obviously spending a lot. There's a second group run by Gabby Giffords' allies, which is spending a lot. But there just has the inequity between kind of pro-gun control and anti-gun control groups has been huge. And if you believe that public policy is a reflection of interest group power, which is a fairly cynical way to see it, but is the way a lot of people do, you understand why we have the status quo. Just given kind of the political influence at play.
Yeah, and the president is determined in this year. Interesting to both that he is doing this, and Hillary Clinton has also made this a big element of her campaign as well. Lots to cover. We just scratched the surface, Teddy, but thanks so much for coming in. Happy New Year. Nice to start off the year with you.
You too. Take care.
Teddy Schleifer from CNN, of course, CNN.com. I'll be back with today's parting shot.
Connect with The Bill Press Show on Twitter. Follow us at BP Show and tweet using the hashtag WatchingBP. This is The Bill Press Show.
At Earth Justice, we defend the environment in the courtroom. Join our fight. When you take a seat, you take a stand. Earth Justice, because the Earth needs a good lawyer.
Sometimes when I'm walking down the street, I'm not necessarily looking out and seeing all these water-wasting lawns and people that aren't as connected to their neighbors and their lives as they could be. I'm walking down the street looking, going, edible oases, rainwater, fed landscape, and just looking at the possibility of these sort of landscapes up and down the streets of neighborhoods and communities all across this world. Small actions do ripple, and they add up, and they have a cumulative impact. And so when you're building upon your small mindful actions, you know, you have the confidence and the ability to take on something a little bit greater. So that would be nice. This, in the context of where we're at as a planet with climate change and these really big issues, and people that are more disconnected and less skilled than ever, it becomes even more amazing and powerful how much of a solution this is to design these ecological gardens and to come together with shared vision and shared voice. There's never been a time where your choices have mattered more. Doing something as simple as us transforming a landscape creates a model that anybody could look at far and wide, and you're sharing food and connecting and building skills together in your own neighborhood. It's a richer way to live in normal times, but in the new normal of climate change and erratic weather and economic upheaval, it becomes essential. Whether it's me, you, Gandhi, Che, MLK, Willy Wonka, whoever, past, present, or future, the power of our daily actions is all that we have. You know, and like our community said, give me a place to stand and a lever long enough and I'll move the world. And that's what those simple actions do. They move the world every day.
The Parting Shot with Bill Press. This is The Bill Press Show.
Well, it's that time again. Nominations for this year's Academy Awards will be announced on January 14. Oscars will be presented on February 28. Now, of course, I'm no movie critic, but in my humble opinion, one film that should definitely be on the list for Best Film of 2015 is Spotlight. I saw it yesterday. It's terrific. First of all, it's a beautifully made movie with phenomenal acting, especially by Mark Ruffalo, Michael Keaton, and Liev Schreiber. Second, it's an important and powerful story about how for decades the hierarchy of the Catholic Church covered up the sexual abuse of young kids by thousands of priests, never reported them to authorities, instead just transferred them to another school or parish where they could rape or molest other kids. But third, it's a tribute to the hard-hitting investigative journalism of the Boston Globe, without which we probably would still never know about this tragic scandal. I got to tell you, watching that movie made me proud to be a journalist, but ashamed to be a Catholic. That's my parting shot for today, folks. Have a great Monday. Come back tomorrow.
This is The Bill Press Show.